And when I welcomed the pastors, here's what I said. In my 40 years of ministry, the experience of gathering with pastors has generally been around one of three themes. When preachers get together, we either are called together to support a political campaign. Somebody's running for office and they want the churches to get out and vote, and they want the politicians to come speak to the people. And so from time to time, at least 3 or 4 times a year, we're invited, especially the larger churches, to gatherings about politics. One. The second type of meeting is generally protest. Something happened, something went wrong, somebody shot somebody, and we're angry. And of course, the pastors want to get together and, fight over who gets on TV and mobilize the people and go protest. And that's a part of our tradition. And it's an important part of our tradition because there are times when we just have to raise our voices and remind America that things still aren't the way they ought to be. And if no one says anything, nothing gets better. So we're used to that. We know how to do that. The third reason for gathering is generally for preaching. And so we gather at Hampton University, or we gather at St. Philip's Church, or we go somewhere and somebody that we think knows how to preach shows up and preaches, and the rest of us steal the sermon, take it home, and make it our own. So it's politics, protest, and preaching. That's why we normally gather. And unfortunately, after 40 years of electing African Americans to office, we still find large segments of our community just stuck. After perfecting the art of protest, we have learned that we respond like we did in Ferguson and like we did in Florida for a few weeks or sometimes a few months, and then we go back home and it's business as usual. And with all the preaching we have and the large churches that we're building, we still find that our people are in trouble. And what I concluded some time ago was that what we needed, in addition to the politics and the protest and the preaching, was a real strategy that could engage our people on a very personal level for the purpose of financial and economic empowerment. When I came to this church, I told the committee that interviewed me that I had 3 focal areas of my ministry: spiritual growth, educational excellence, and economic empowerment. My personal belief is if you have a relationship with God, a well-developed mind, and access to money, you're free. I don't care what they call you. I don't care what party's in power. I really don't care what your philosophy is. You've got to have a relationship with God. You've got to have an articulate capacity, and you've got to have some capital, some money, and access to capital. And that constitutes freedom. Without that, then you look free, but you're not free. And what I discovered in the first 15 years of my ministry here was that even when I used the terms economic empowerment, I was operating at a level that was still one step removed from the day-to-day realities of my own members. And so economic empowerment, pursuant to everything I had thought and preached and taught and read, had to do with building housing. We built housing. If you go around this neighborhood today, you will see over 700 units of new housing that we either built or we were responsible for building. We built half, and we developed a plan that facilitated the building of the other half. Anybody who grew up here and comes back now, they don't recognize the neighborhood. This was the poorest and the most dangerous neighborhood in Central Jersey. Nothing like Monclair. Amen. And I decided I was going to make it look more like Monclair. But we built houses. We created a health clinic around the corner on Howe Lane. There is an 80,000 square foot medical facility, which when I got here was an abandoned warehouse. And that abandoned warehouse was the beginning of the decline of the industrial area across the street, which had hundreds of jobs, which, if those jobs went away, would really decimate the whole neighborhood. And so we bought that warehouse, not really knowing what was going to happen with the warehouse, what we would do with the warehouse, but we knew that we had to save that particular warehouse. It was the best looking building. in the area. It housed the former Home News newspaper, which moved out, and we knew that if we didn't save that this neighborhood would be even more dangerous and there'd be more poverty and more violence. So we bought it. We partnered with the Catholic Hospital. We created a primary care health facility, and now about 20,000 people per month are served there. You can get everything there except an overnight stay in a hospital. It's just a marvelous facility. And so we were proud of that. We took an abandoned bank building that was about to become a regional headquarters for pornography. We turned that temporarily into a youth center, our administrative offices. Today, it's a 64-unit senior citizen housing complex. It's affordable. We've got 5 units designated for homeless veterans, and on the first floor, the County Board of Social Services does their business there. So we're happy about that. Next door to that, we're going to renovate another small building for a community center that you'll hear about some other time. And then we built this sanctuary. I mean, there were 13 houses we had to buy and relocate families. It cost us about $23 million in total. And so we were growing institutionally. We formed a credit union that has $2 million in assets. We have 4 other nonprofit corporations, 2 for housing, 1 for economic development. We formed a technology training center. So we're doing all these programs. At one point, our church had about 50 staff people. Our CDC had 85. So we had a staff of 135 people coming to work every day. You know, our budget was about $20 million. So we're moving. But what we discovered along the way, for instance, was that when we built 124 condominiums across the street and sold them for $65,000, $75,000, and $85,000. The $85,000 condo across the street was a duplex with a spiral staircase, 3 bedrooms, and a loft. We sold them for $85,000. Today they're worth $235,000. But the majority of the people for whom we built them could not qualify because of bad credit. Just couldn't qualify. And when I say bad credit, I mean bad credit. I'm talking about in the 300s, you know, in the 400s. I got on the board of the bank around the corner when I first got here, which is really where I learned more about money from a little bank around the corner than I did anywhere else, because I never took a course in finance, budgeting, nothing. I mean, my biggest course in money was running from bill collectors, as I confess in my book. But around the corner from the church, there was a 1-branch bank, $100 million in assets. They asked me to come on the board, and I thought this was a good chance to be involved in an institution that could help our community. And when I got on the board, we started a micro-lending program where members of the church and community, screened by volunteers from the church and the CDC, could qualify to get a business loan up to $15,000, even if they had bad credit, just based on character. If we said, trust them, the bank trusted them. And we began building out our economic development from that position. But I was so embarrassed because every month the bank would have a list of people that owed money on their credit cards that the bank felt would never pay. And so we would vote as a board to charge off those credit cards and sell them to the bill collectors and let them have the problem. And every single month I saw good, Holy Ghost-filled, sanctified First Baptist members. And my first inclination was to say, oh, no, don't charge this off. You know, she's a good member of our church. And I said, boy, you better shut your mouth. Let them charge that thing off. And increasingly, I discovered that, Increasingly, I discovered that members of my own congregation had missed all of this growth and expansion and development, and the church was doing well. The church's finances were doing well. Our community development corporations were doing, the institutions were doing well. And so from the outside, it really looked like uplift. In fact, what I'm most proud of in terms of our community process is that in the building of all of our houses, in the development even of this sanctuary, no family was displaced such that they had to move because they couldn't stay, or they had to increase their cost of living. Everybody who wanted to stay in the neighborhood stayed in the neighborhood. Anybody who wanted to move could move, and the people that we relocated so that their cost of living would not go up. If they had a mortgage, their mortgage wouldn't go up. If they didn't have a mortgage, they wouldn't have a mortgage. So by 2005, I'm telling you what's not in the book because it's an insult to tell people what's already available. By 2005, it was clear that our economic empowerment focus had to really deal with the nitty-gritty realities of our people in the church, of our people in the community. And just based on my own experience of having nice clothes, nice cars, nice apartment, nice furniture, and being dead broke, what I really began looking at was consumerism and budgeting and waste and just ignorance as related to money. And rather than focus on the approach that most materials use, you can get all kinds of materials like we did. We used hands-on banking. We used Money Smart. We used some Crown Ministries materials. And we found with the materials that were available, either they were great financially but didn't get to the root cause of why we spend so much money. Or they got to the root cause like Dave Ramsey, but they didn't deal with the cultural peculiarities of African Americans. Or they dealt with the cultural issues but didn't deal with a proactive strategy. They just kind of dealt with moaning, groaning, whining, and complaining. And so what we felt we needed here that we developed into this process, it took about 5 years, was something that was biblically sound, culturally relevant, but still inclusive, that was microscopically personal, but not so individualistic that we lose our sense of community. And so what you're going to hear today is really not just content, but strategy. It's not just about learning how to teach content because, frankly, as I said, I'm not a financial expert, but I've written a book. We've got a workbook. I travel around the country. We've got websites. This is not really about money. This is about taking control of our lives and using money to reach our life goals. If money management is the goal, then you'll learn to manage money, but you still won't be able to figure out why so many NBA players go bankrupt. I mean, they hire money managers. If financial literacy is the goal, then you'll never understand why the people who are most financially literate drove this country into financial ruin. We had a global meltdown because most literate people got greedy and started selling bad products, and we kind of went along with it. So you'll hear this description, but I have taken all of what I learned when I was organizing in Monclair as a young man, all of what I learned in doing politics and running political campaigns, all of what I've learned as a pastor, teacher, preacher, all of those things I kind of put together into a strategy that we call dfree. And the word dfree is meaningful because we just couldn't get people to fix their lips to say, I'm drowning in debt. And so we took the kind of negative out of the strategy and tried to flip it into a positive. And what we discovered here after a while was that the same people who would not admit, either by showing up at an event or by just signing a pledge, they would not admit that they were drowning in debt. They're now willing to say, I'm trying to be debt-free. So there was some marketing and psychological thinking behind developing a brand. And also there's a specific emphasis on the free part. The focus is not on the debt or the delinquencies or the deficits. The focus is on being free from paycheck to paycheck living, being free from running from bill collectors every Tuesday and Thursday night as I was, being free from saying to somebody, I don't know where my money goes. I used to say that to my dad, I don't know where my money goes. And Dad would say, well, don't leave home while you're sleeping. Your money goes where you take it. But just the act. We've seen transformation in the lives of people just by going through the act of writing down what they spend for a month. Just write it down. oh my God, I didn't realize I was spending that much. We have seen people have an epiphany when they realize they really don't need 800 TV stations. They probably only watch 9, and they're paying for premium in excess of what they use, and they could save that money and take it somewhere else. I got an email from a young man in Louisville who sold his iPhone 6S. He decided he didn't need a 6S. Went back to the iPhone 4. It did everything he needed. He took the $600 that he made off the iPhone 6S, put it in a bank account. It was the first time he had a $600 savings account. And we can make all the speeches we want about African Americans having $1.1 trillion, and if every black person in America would put $1 here, all those grand speeches that we hear at conventions and conferences and on TV, and it does not connect with the day-to-day realities of the average person until we get down to the point of realizing that some of us spend enough money on Starbucks to shift that money and put it into an insurance policy so that we can leave a legacy for our children. Until we get there, it's just talk. It's just talk. So the median net worth of the average African American today is around $6,000, 6 plus a couple of pennies. The median of the average white family is $120,000. So how do we close that gap? Well, the easy answer is insurance. We don't want to talk about insurance. We don't think about insurance, but the reality is a person who's addicted to cigarettes or Starbucks could close the gap in wealth between blacks and whites and their family by giving up either and investing differently. Just Starbucks or cigarettes. So we have a young lady in our church who comes from a single-parent home, and when her dad died recently, much to her surprise and her mother's surprise, her dad left an insurance policy for her. She inherited over $200,000 from her dad. He now, despite what he didn't do while he was alive, he now has closed the gap for his daughter between African American and white American net worth. So this is having the conversation. I welcome you to it. We have streamers now. Hello, streamers. You came on late, but you're in time. I was just talking till you got here. And I want streamers, if you would just type in who you are so that we can welcome you officially, we'll do that. So fasten your seatbelts. Understand, we're not going to teach you how to be financial experts. We're going to teach you how to be Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman leading people out of slavery into freedom. All right? So thank you for being here. Should I introduce somebody? Or are you speaking next? Yeah. This is Tamika Stembridge. And she emails you between 1 and 3 in the morning. Her story is such a phenomenal story. I just love her. She went to law school at night. She's got an MBA. I mean, she's just all of this, and she has resisted the temptation of just going to get a big job down at Johnson & Johnson to stay here and work with her pastor at dfree. So thank you, Tamika.
Okay. So we are going to now switch to our slides. Let me know. We're switching? Okay. So I am not the technology guru, but we'll make this work. So Pastor gave you guys a really good overview of what dfree is all about. And what we're going to go through today is, in addition to a little bit more of the background, the content. We're going to take you through all of what dfree is about, the 12 steps to financial freedom, and then we'll wrap up with what it takes to really start the ministry and the program within your particular organizations. So I'm going to blow through a few of these slides really quickly. We did the welcome. You saw our lovely pastor. We have some testimonials, and you guys will get these slides. The folks online, you guys have access to this deck, so just follow us as closely as you can. Let's see. Wait, actually, I want to say this. So one of the things we didn't really say was what dfree is. And so the mission of dfree is it's a transformational lifestyle movement that applies values-based principles and practical approaches to financial management. So it's not just the financial literacy piece. It really is the values. It gets to the core of who you are. It gets all in your business, why you're doing what you're doing. It gets to your attitudes and gets to the behaviors as to why you spend your money the way you do. And how do you change those attitudes and behaviors so that eventually your money starts to follow. It's about managing your life more than it is about managing your money. Because if your life is out of control, your money's going to be out of control. And money's just a symptom of your life being out of control. So, we focus a lot more on attitudes and behaviors than we do on balancing a checkbook. Because we all know how to do that. Most people learn how to balance a checkbook in high school at the very least. Our attitudes are messed up, so we don't do it. Or we spend because we're sad, or we spend because we're lonely. And it really gets to the heart of those matters. So we talk about what people will experience when they go through dfree. A lot of times you're going to see a decrease in reliance on credit cards. Hopefully, that's the number one thing. You'll see a decrease in late payment fees because now you're catching up with your life. You know when your bills are due, so you adjust your life accordingly. You see a decrease in emotional spending. That's a big deal, a really big deal. I was single, living by myself, making a whole lot of money, and going shopping every time I got bored. Or I couldn't find a friend to go hang out with. So, those are the kind of things that cause us to spend money. So as you're going through the dfree process, you start to see these things decrease because now, again, you're managing your life and your money is going to follow. In terms of what you'll see increase, number one, you'll see an increase in savings. That's one of the bigger outcomes. You'll see an increase in your awareness of your financial goals. You'll have a financial goal because a lot of people, once you're in debt, you can't even see past the debt. You stop opening your bills. You stop doing all the things that you should be doing to be able to handle your finances properly. And you'll see an increase. You'll start opening up. You'll start having more conversations about money if you're in a relationship. Your peers will start to recognize the difference in you. So those are some of the behaviors and the attitudes that you'll see change with the dfree experience. We don't do this work alone. We do have some corporate partners that come alongside of us because none of us are financial experts. We pull in experts from the outside to provide information and resources to people that are a part of dfree. So as you get your ministries or your programs up and running, you will also have access to them. So our biggest partner right now is Prudential. They are an insurance and annuities company. They will not be selling you insurance policies if they come out and do programming for you. They will do workshops and exercises to talk to people about retirement and talk to people about life insurance. City National Bank is our banking partner right now. So once you start amassing this little bit of savings account, you now have a bank that you can go to. One of the big things that Pastor talks about is fighting payday lending and predatory lending activities. And a lot of people say, okay, well, once I get out of this payday loan, how do I get into traditional banking? Because we're so used to going to a check cashing place that we don't even know what a bank looks like. So, we have partners that come on board and talk to us about the different banking options and fees and all that kind of stuff so people know how to bank properly. Think Finance is one of our partners that actually, on one side, is in the payday lending business. But on the dfree side is working to create alternatives to get people out of payday loans. It's like a company with a conscience that says, we need to do this differently. And so they're one of our partners to help create alternatives to payday lending because I don't know if you guys know, you can pay up to 300% on a payday loan. And that $500 that you took out, you could end up paying thousands on if you're not paying it off properly. So how do we quickly get people out of those situations and into a better financial position? And that's something that we're working on with Think Finance. And Success Measures is the tool that we use. It's a nationally validated tool that we use to measure the success of dfree nationally. So once you guys get up and running, we'll get you guys pulled into the Success Measures process. It's a survey at the beginning of your 12-step training and a survey at the end that asks basic questions so that we have something to compare, what people are going through. And it doesn't measure financial impact. It measures, again, changes in attitudes and behaviors. So it's a really, really great tool, and we're excited to have them on board as a partner. And lastly, Home Free USA, which provides counseling for people that are purchasing homes or for people that are getting ready to lose their home or people that have questions about owning a home. They're a really great partner of ours. So thank you to our sponsors. And we have some really big strategic relationships. dfree is primarily a clergy and religious-based product, if you will. So most of our marketing does go towards churches, and we've had the privilege of being invited by several national Baptist organizations to come on board, and they're adopting dfree as their program of choice for financial management. So we did National Baptist Convention earlier this year. We have a webinar coming up in April with the Progressive National Baptist Convention. We'll be doing Full Gospel in July. So we have a lot of organizations that are coming on board. So that, again, expands the reach of dfree, and not from a corporate standpoint of us just wanting to get the brand out there, but being able to change lives on a really mass level. So we're excited about that. So the D's of dfree, I think Pastor started talking about this a little bit. It's about eliminating debt, delinquency, and deficits, and converting that newfound money into deposits, deeds, and dividends. So we want to be doing productive things with our money and not, being in a hole of debt and owing people. So that is what dfree stands for. So we're going to get into the core elements of dfree, and the first part of it, before you even start dfree, before you even get into the 12-step process, is setting a goal, thinking about what you want to achieve. So I'm going to invite Sanaya Williams up to show you how we do handle our goal-setting process, and then we'll jump into the content. Sanaya?
Good morning. So what I'm going to show you and take you through is our online tool called $1 Billion Challenge. It's on billiondollarpaydown.com. And what we invite you guys to do is create a login and then create a group for the community or the organization that you are launching dfree in. Right now, as of this morning, we've already paid down $1.3 million, and our goal is to get to paying down $1 billion in debt. So when you go to billiondollarpaydown.com, the upper right-hand corner, there's a green button there, and it shows you can click on there and create your login. And what will happen is you create your user ID, your password, you'll get an email, and you have to confirm, and then your login will be created. This is a screen that shows you the username, the password. Once you do that, you come to a screen that has a dashboard. On this dashboard here, you can see that we have about 5 different pieces of debt that we're tracking to pay down. When you create your account, you go in there and you put down, say, your mortgage, your car loan, your insurance, your credit card. You set the date of the frequency of how often you want to make a payment, whether it's monthly, weekly, and it calculates the payment. It doesn't include interest. That's a feature we're working on, but it'll calculate whether you are paying $20 a month, $10 a week, whichever, and then you'll get a reminder. And as you start to make those payments, our numbers go up, right? Because that counts towards the $1 billion in debt we want to pay down. And then you see the blue bars there. That shows that the first one, I believe, is an insurance loan, and I think it's at $2,000. And you can see that blue bar shows how much we've paid down, right? So once that's full, it's 100%, you've reached your goal. And this is a screen where you get to calculating and adding your debt. So this is where you can go in and add new debt, adjust the debt you've had, and remove it once it's completed. The other feature of $1 Billion Paydown is groups. So I know we've had a lot of deltas start creating groups, and we can kind of create some friendly competition amongst the groups because we can see how you're tracking towards paying down your goal, whether you're at 30%, 50%. And what we're going to start doing is building in some rewards to kind of create and keep the activity going amongst the different groups that are on $1 Billion Paydown. Now, all the information that you enter in here is secure. We can't see your account information. We can't see any unsecure, like financial stuff. We don't have credit cards. We don't have bank accounts. We don't have any of that. So what I invite you to do is go to $1 Billion Paydown and create an account, and then create a group and invite the people you're teaching dfree to also create an account and join that group. And if you have any questions, you can email info@mydfree.org, and we can help you guys get all set up.
How are we doing with energy? Doing okay? All right. So we're going to keep going to catch us up and make sure that we stay on time. I need to talk on the mic because it's streaming, right? I was going to say, can you hear me? But I forgot about the streaming. All right. So you've heard a lot about why dfree was started, how it got started. We talked a little bit about the $1 Billion Challenge website. How many people are familiar with the $1 Billion Challenge website? Everybody? And for the sorors, as you know, that is one of our national calls to action under financial fortitude is the $1 Billion Challenge, because we want to help folks get out of debt. And we want to help folks, reduce this debt. And so we've given you the challenge, and what dfree is all about is how can we now connect you to a process to help you realize that goal? Because we want to be successful, right? So we really have to think about how we go about this. So when we first started dfree in 2005 here at First Baptist Church, there was a lot of focus on just paying down debt. And so for me, when I first heard about dfree, I said, well, I've worked down my debt and I'm in good shape, so I didn't think there was something for me. But paying down debt is very different than being financially well. Because one of the issues that we have, especially as we think about economic empowerment and making sure that our communities are healthy, is not just about paying down debt, but also becoming financially well. So when you think about this continuum that you see here, this is not just a program or an initiative. This is really a grassroots movement to help people move along the continuum. So we want to really meet you where you are and then move you along this continuum to wellness. And so when you think about it, the fundamentals, and we'll talk about this a little bit, is how you pay down debt. We have different strategies, as Pastor said, that we'll show you that you can use to help pay down debt. But then it's important to make sure you're building that emergency fund. Because if you don't build that emergency fund, the first time your brakes go, the gas, your hot water heater breaks, something happens to your tires, you spend money that you don't have. Or, Delta Days come up, a convention come up, next thing you know, you're dipping into that money. So if you don't have funds set aside for these things, then you're just going to go right back into debt. So it's about a lifestyle and really challenging, why am I spending the way that I do? Or what's important to me? What are my core values? And am I really aligning how I'm managing money to my lifestyle and what I want to achieve? So we talk about building an emergency fund and just get people thinking about that. If you don't have at least 3 to 6 months of savings, then you really can't stay debt-free. You're constantly looking at how you can borrow if you're living beyond your means. So we talk to people about that, and then we move along that continuum to, if you've done all those things, then are you building wealth? Because it's not just about maintaining. We want to make sure that we build wealth and that we understand how to build wealth. So we'll talk about in the curriculum how we start to talk about savings and investments and, what are good strategies to have. And do you even have a financial professional that you can connect with to make sure that as you grow, that you're growing in a way that's healthy and productive. So we talk about building wealth. We talk about wealth production, because as you build your wealth, are you protecting your wealth? Do you have your insurances in place? We talk a lot about life insurance, but how many people really think about disability insurance before something happens? And I'll tell you, if you're working in corporate America, the time to start thinking about, do you have enough coverage, is not when something happens, because it's too late. So you don't want to be in a crisis making a decision or having to think and plan. You want to plan so when that crisis arrives, it's not a crisis because you've prepared for it, right? And the best way not to get into a crisis is to plan. So we want to talk about wealth protection. And I was just talking to someone about long-term care. How many people even think about long-term care? Well, we're living longer and longer. The millennials are, the now generation, so we don't know what this is going to look like later. But the time to think about long-term care is not when you need long-term care. And so when you think about protecting your wealth, if you end up falling on misfortune, going into a home, some places, will take all the wealth that you thought you had saved up before they can even help you with resources. And so you have to think about these things when you're able to plan to do differently. So what we really want to emphasize is just when you know better, you do better. And so we want to equip you with tools to start thinking about your lifestyle and what you want to do. And then we take that all the way through leaving a legacy, because the Bible talks about leaving a legacy for our children's children. And most of the time in our communities, what's the legacy that we leave? We leave debt, we leave hardship, and we also leave people fighting over what's left because we haven't left an organized plan to know what to do with what's left. Right? So we want to give people choices and options by equipping them with tools. So as Pastor said, it's not that we're claiming to be the financial experts, but we want to make sure that we collectively here position ourselves to be able to facilitate the process, connect people and resources so that we can do better. All right? So at First Baptist, we do this, and we talk about meeting people where they are and helping them to move through the continuum. Okay, I'm clicking all over. Okay. Oh, I was looking at my iPad. I was going the wrong way. Okay. So I I've talked a little bit about this. We have a lot of support, and I want to emphasize that the support that we have here will also be available to you. And so when we have our monthly seminars, and we have them here every third Saturday, our next one is going to be on credit. Then when we stream live, you can certainly participate that way. And if you're local, you're welcome to come and join us here as well, because they're open to the community. Because this is not just an internal initiative that we have. We really want to make this community-wide so that we can invite the community to be economically empowered along with us, because that's the only way we're going to really get there as a culture. We have publications, we have training like what we're doing today, strategic campaigns and events, and then we have other resources as well. And we're starting to build a library of resources of people in the field that we can also refer you to, so that if you have an issue in credit, I want to be able to say, well, here's 3 or 4 people that we know are really, really good, sound, have good references. Call them, and maybe you can select someone who can help you without just charging you a lot of money. I know that we connected with one organization with student loans, and we've been able to help them get connected with people who have issues with student loans, because no matter what you pay off, those student loans are not going away until you pay. They will find you. Right? So we help people get connected with resources. And when you think about our overall approach for dfree, we have 3 components that we look at. Education is key. We cannot just make this an emotional journey. We have to understand the statistics, we have to understand the tools that are available, and we have to equip people so that they can do better. So when we talk about the curriculum, we give you everything that you need to be able to facilitate this, right down to a script if that's what you would like to use during your training. Okay, so we educate through the 12-step process, the 12 steps to financial freedom, and people rally around 12-step programs with support. You can think of a lot of other areas where you have 12-step programs, and then you take one day at a time, right? So we know it's an effective method. We know it works. We see it with weight. We see it when people are overcoming addiction. And we see this being successful in this financial area because we give you the curriculum, we give you the tools, and then each month we give you reminders and refreshers so that you can continue to have support along that journey. And some people in the classes form support groups for one another where they can challenge each other. Well, why are you going to that Met counter buying those 3 tubes of lipstick when you can do something else and save $100, right? If that's your goal. And so we can support one another along this journey as well. Motivation at First Baptist, every 4th Sunday, we have dfree Sunday. And we let people stand up and give a quick testimony on what they've paid off. Now, they don't have to get into their personal business because we know we're personal when it comes to our finances. But what they do is say, I paid off a bill, I paid off a mortgage. And you'll be surprised how that energy just spreads. And people will stop me outside the church and say, hey, I paid off something today. They may not have wanted to stand up, but we're celebrating, something very different here. Whereas before, people may not have even been thinking about the importance of paying off some of these bills or medical bills. And as they share, people ask questions, if they're starting a new investment portfolio, people will start to ask about that. So a lot of good motivational support, and you can easily translate this to your organizations, to your chapters, right? When you get people together trying to drive towards a common goal, then that will motivate them. That's that positive peer pressure that we want to get started with. And then we provide support. As I said, we have resources that we connect people with. And then we also give you any resources that you need from First Baptist as well. And as Tamika said, there's churches around the world that's starting to do this. We even have churches in Africa and Botswana and Haiti that's starting, in Ghana, that's starting to catch hold of this movement that we have. We had people at the dfree conference from Chicago and from different states, from Indianapolis, from Baltimore. We're getting ready to kick it off in Philadelphia. So just imagine the power of this, not only in the church, in the sorority, in the community, if we really pull this off to get this positive peer pressure going, to say, how do we help ourselves get economically free and empowered? When we get to the classes and we give you some of the stats, it's amazing to me, if we chose to spend differently, what we can accomplish as a people. All right? So, did I go too far? So I've talked a little bit about this, and I'm just going to wrap up here. So we do have the 12-step process. We'll talk about that more when we get to the classes. And so basically what we're saying here is with a movement, you need a leader with a vision, and we have that. Dr. Sorority launched this in 2005, and this vision is still alive because when God calls you to do something, whether you carry this vision to the end or not, the vision will be realized. And so this is a vision of how we can really move forward in this dfree movement. And then you need a few people who are willing to step out on faith and take a risk to really engage in the movement to follow that leader. And sometimes those people are more important than the leader because they're going to implement the vision. And that's all of us here being willing to be that volunteer to take this back to the communities and to the chapters and to the other churches to really implement this program. And it's not even about just the lessons as much as getting these conversations started to engage people in that. And then we have the formal training, we have the structured training, and then just really creating that visibility so that people can really start to take hold of what we have going on. All right? So any questions on any of that? Because we want to make sure that we get into the content of the training. All right? So you're with me? We're going to be that movement that really gets this started. I'm excited about it, in case you can't tell, because this is work that we need to do in our communities. And I don't know how many people, in my family where, they borrow, but are we really equipping them? I mean, you don't want to give people food. You want to teach them how to fish, right? And so this is what we really need to do here for our organizations. And I'm excited about starting this in our sorority, too, because this is something that we can all rally around and help one another, all right? So is it a quick break, or you want to jump right into the content? How are you feeling? Ladies' room, quick break? Okay, so I think on the agenda we have, 10 minutes? Okay, because I know we have people on the live stream as well. So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll jump right into the content of the curriculum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. All right, we're ready. Okay. All right, we're going to get started again, and this is the fun part. What do I need to say? Okay, go ahead.
So for those of you that did not register on the website, if you give me your email address, name and email, you can get all the information that we're sharing here. I have it online so that the people that are listening on live stream actually have it, and you guys can have it too, so you can download it and use it later.
So now's the fun part. So we gave you the background of dfree. We talked a little bit about, I'm so not a singer, and this is weird. Okay. So we talked about background for dfree and kind of how we got here. And now we're going to talk about how you guys are going to deliver dfree training. Now, whether or not you're going to be the specific person doing the training within your organization, we want to walk you through what we've put together for you guys to deliver. And I know Michelle made reference to it earlier. There is a script to this. So as we're going through all the content, it's going to feel like a lot, but there literally is a script that we will send you that goes step by step. Click here, turn here, say this. Oh, you're nervous? Say this then. Like, it is very, very specific. So if you're not ready to kind of dive into it on your own, just know that there is a script that you guys will have to go through it, and we'll show you that as well. So we'll start with the tools that you have when you're delivering training. The first thing that you'll need is the dfree book, dfree, Breaking Free from Financial Slavery. So that's the actual textbook. Can I borrow one real quick? Not that well, you guys have it. I'm showing it to you like y'all don't have it. I'm thinking that we're on camera. So there's the textbook, and then there's the workbook that's 12 Steps to Financial Freedom. And the textbook basically goes through Dr. Sori's story and includes the biblical references and just the overall strategy of dfree, what it looks like from beginning to end. The workbook takes you through step by step personally and shows you how to move through dfree within your own life. So there are exercises in there. That will also be the basis for the training that you deliver. So the text will be something that most people will read while they're at home. The workbook, they'll do the exercises, and then you guys will come together as a group to go over the material. Now, one thing that's unique about the workbook is that even though it's personal and you'll go through the exercises on your own, you'll meet a lovely family led by Claude and Grace. And we're normally a people that doesn't like to talk about our personal business together as a group. So what we've done intentionally in the workbook is we've adopted a family that is going through some dfree struggles, and you will use them as a point of reference. So when you're in class, if people don't want to open up and talk about their own experiences, there are scenarios for each step and kind of a story, and you'll follow Claude and Grace through their marriage together and their children, and you'll meet everybody. And that gives you a point of reference so that people can speak to the issues in the context of someone outside of themselves, because we're all really great at giving advice, right? Like, we can tell everybody else what to do instead of listening for ourselves. So we embedded that into the process. So we're going to give a whole lot of advice, and hopefully somebody will take it home with them once you're done training. Okay. So, like we said, the program is organized into 4 levels, and there are 3 steps within each level. So level 1 is get started, level 2 is get control, level 3 is get ahead, and level 4 is give back. Now, I like to tell people when they're in this training, you guys are already at step 4. Even though you haven't gone through steps 1, 2, and 3, the fact that you're here and ready to deliver dfree to other people, that's what level 4 is all about, is how do you now take what you've learned and share it with others. So thank you guys for completing the process. You are all straight A students. And the way the course is organized, so you guys will actually get files that have the presentations that you'll be teaching on them. And the way they're organized, it's right now we're going to go through an overview of 12 weeks. I'll talk you through the format and the flow of each session, and then we'll go through the materials. So every lesson starts out with a prayer. Now, if you're doing it within an organization that's not religious-based, you can skip the prayer. But because it is biblically based, we do try to kind of welcome the environment and kind of get people in the mindset of talking about dfree and welcoming the Spirit into the room. It works really well. Most people are doing this either after work or on a Saturday morning or even a Sunday morning after church. So to kind of just level set and kind of take the negativity of the day away and get people into the right mindset. We do open each session in prayer. The prayers are pre-written in the presentation, but you're more than welcome to change them and adapt it for what is going to be most relevant for you. And then we do an icebreaker normally for each session, again, to get the group familiar with each other, to get them kind of out of whatever they were in before they came into class, and just to kind of level set the room. And then there'll be the opening story, which is Claude and Grace, and you'll meet them as you go through the workbook. They're a very lovely couple with some very interesting children, so that's kind of the first part of it, is just you'll go through the opening story. And there's also an opportunity to talk about what's in the text, so you'll talk about whatever Dr. Story spoke to in that particular chapter. And then there's a video. So we try to accommodate all different types of learners. Pastor did a series with All Right TV. Tracy Edmonds hosted it, and he actually did a video component for each of the 12 steps. So baked into the presentation will be the link to the actual video. They're out on YouTube. So for each step, you'll go through the video, and he gives kind of an overview of what's in the book, but it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more relevant. There are real people that are included in the videos. So you'll go through that, and it'll be a point of discussion as well. And then you'll actually get into the lesson. So what we're going to do now is go through the 12 steps really quickly, and then we'll show you exactly what the slide deck looks like. It's very well organized. Again, there's a script that goes with every single slide, so you will not be confused, I promise. So level 1, get started. And I can't see that. That's really small. But level 1 is it's the level setting chapter. It's the chapter that familiarizes people with kind of the introduction to dfree. When we talked about the 3 different Ds of debt, delinquency, and deficit, you'll introduce that part in level 1. And then there's a scripture that goes along with it. So every chapter will have a scriptural reference that kind of points back to the Bible. Because a lot of people think that we just made this up. Like I just told you, none of us are financial professionals. This really is a biblically based program that just shows you, again, the attitudes and behaviors of addressing money. So we talk about the 3 types of spending habits as well. And we'll get to that. I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. But this is just kind of an overview. It gets you into the mindset of what dfree is all about. And similar to what we just went through here in this class, that's what you'll go through for level 1. For level 2, now again, I talked a lot about this not necessarily being a finance program, but really being about attitudes and behaviors. So in step 2, it's about changing your attitude, the importance of getting information, and looking at your breaking point. So there are 3 types of spending that the program really focuses on. The first one being compensatory spending, and that is where you're spending money to make up for something that you're missing. So you're trying to compensate for something that's missing in your life. There is conspicuous spending, where you're spending for status. So you want to look like the Kardashians, or you want to look like whoever you see on TV, or the Joneses, you know, that family that we've all been trying to keep up with that is just as broke as we are. You know, there's that family. And then there's confused spending, where we're just out spending $7 on coffee every morning at Starbucks that we don't even know what's in it. We just order it fancy. And yeah, so what chapter 2 gets to is those 3 types of spending. So again, it gets into your business a little bit and really forces you to analyze how you're spending your money. So that's what we do in step 2. In step 3, again, it's looking at the abundance of stuff. So once we introduce the topics, and you have a question? Oh, that's step 2. Sorry, I did see. All right, so we did that. I'm sorry, I'm going between 2 things. When we get to step 3, it goes back to the spiritual foundation. So now it asks you to evaluate your behavior for a week and write down when you have the urges to spend, when you actually do spend, and forces you to actually keep track of the money and where it goes. Pastor has a good saying, you know, he used to wake up and tell his dad, well, I don't know where all my money goes. And he's like, well, it doesn't get up and walk away while you're sleeping. So just within that 2nd and 3rd week process, we allow people to keep track of their spending. And when they do that, they come back to step 3. And it's like, okay, now look at your behaviors. Why did you spend what you spent? Like I think a couple weeks ago I was telling my dfree class, I lost $30. And I didn't lose it, I spent it, but I could not remember where I spent it. And I had receipts for everything, and I had my list, but still even in keeping track of it, I lost $30. And that's just the kind of thing that happens. You know, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you're actually focused on keeping track of it, this process keeps you honest to that. Because you're now like, what did I do with that money? So that's kind of what we allow people to go through when they're going through this. And even though it's a 12-step process, you will start to have breakthroughs probably at about week 2 and 3. because that'll be the first time that people are actively looking at what they're spending. And so even though it's a 12-week process, you're going to see breakthroughs along the way. So it's important, to Michelle's point, is to make sure you celebrate that. You know, maybe open each of your classes. Does anybody have a dfree success story to share? And keep it personal. Like, even though there's tons of material in the, you know, in the packets that you're going to get, you may not get through it in 1 week. Like, we do 1 class a week. You may not get through it in the entire week. And that's the expectation, is that you probably won't. But you want to do whatever is necessary to get your group through the material and to understand and to start seeing the life change. So even if you never get through all the slides, just making sure that people are, you know, getting the material and making the changes is what's important. So step 3 is adjusting the attitude, like I said. So you go back through your list of spending, and now you're talking about, what am I changing? Why am I doing this? And really start to evaluate why you're doing what you're doing with your money. One of the things I also say, because I teach dfree here at the church, is that it is going to become, if the class is going well, almost like a support group or a therapy session, because you're forcing people to go through their lives and assess how they're thinking and assess how they behave. And most of us have not gone through counseling or anything like that, so this is one of the first times that you're really going to do it. And if you want to know what people are focused on, you look at how they spend their time and how they spend their money. So you're going to be very, very close with your group. People are going to start to share a lot with you. And I just invite you and implore you to kind of, you're not responsible for their life change, but you're responsible for being an advocate for that process. So just, you know, as much as people want to be open, allow them to do that, because you're going to start seeing it. The further and further you go along the process, the more and more they're going to share with you. And it's not abnormal. So don't start feeling like people are giving you too much. Just know that they're looking to you to kind of take them through this process, and that will be their outlet when they come to your class. So around step 3, it's going to get real deep and very personal. So just be prepared for that. All right? So now you've made it through level 1. You got started. You started looking at how you're spending your money. Level 2 is about getting control. Now we know what we've been doing. Level 2 is about changing it so that we can get a hold of where our money is going. We can keep it from flying out the window or getting up while we're sleeping. So again, once you get to level 2, you'll get all the objectives for that overall group of goals, and then it'll take you through the steps. So step 4 is about starting the plan. And one of the things that's unique to dfree is that we talk about budgets, but we talk about it in the context of a spending plan. How many people actually have budgets? Like, you have a budget that you work with. At the end of the month, are there usually things that are missing from the budget, or money that gets spent that's outside of the budget? How many find that that's an issue? One of the things that we focus on in dfree is an actual spending plan. Like, once you track your spending for a week, and then you go through and write down your bills for the month, the spending plan actually, when you look at what you spend and how you spend it and pair it next to the budget that you already have, the spending plan will show you where the gaps are. Because a lot of times we won't write down our hair appointment. We won't write down our nails. We won't write down gas. We won't write down food. We won't write down eating out. Those are things that are normally not planned and not in your budget. Your budget is what your mortgage is, your car note, the things that stay the same every month. The spending plan shows you what you're spending in addition to that budget. So it's a more realistic picture of how you're spending your money. So the things that we don't account for that take up money, we're like, well, dang, how did I do that? Yeah, you went and got your hair done 3 times this month. And then you went and got your nails done. Oh, and that's $7 on your eyebrows. That you didn't account for in your budget. So you always come up short because your budget naturally is missing things, whereas a spending plan is more accurate. So that's what you get into for step 4 is, you know, creating a spending plan and going through your actual spending habits so that you have a more accurate picture of where your money's going. And then step 5 is steering the power. So you're going to evaluate that spending plan and say, okay, I make this much money in a month. I'm spending this much money in a month. Where are the gaps? If I'm overspending, where do I need to cut? If I have extra money that I didn't know I had, what am I going to do with it? And then we also talk about, we'll get into like the snowball method and making power payments. How do you go about paying down your debt? So you know that you have 6 credit cards in your spending plan that you're paying every month. How are you actually going to pay them off? And we recommend normally starting with the smallest one first because, you know, it's a quick win. If you can pay off that $500 credit card in 5 months, and then you take the extra money that you're paying on that credit card and then apply it to the next biggest debt. So we teach people how to actually go through paying off their debts starting in step 5. So up until now, we didn't do a whole lot of finances. Like, we haven't talked a whole lot about finances. And so don't worry about not being a finance expert because you don't have to. And then step 6 is setting the timer. Now that you have your plan in place, you've set your goals, you've adjusted your $1 billion challenge goals, because that's the other thing. With $1 billion challenge, you can set up how fast you want to pay something off, and it will adjust your payments accordingly. Whereas most of your bills come with, okay, if you pay $25 a month, it'll take you 10 years to pay this $500 off. With $1 billion challenge, you can adjust and say, okay, I want to pay this $500 credit card off in 3 months, and it will show you how much you should be paying in order to achieve that goal. So that's one of the beauties of $1 billion challenge, is that you now have control of seeing how fast or how, not so fast you're going to be able to pay something off. Like I went in the first time and I set everything up, and I was like, I'm going to pay this credit card off in 6 months. And I'm going to pay this credit card off in 3 months. And I'm going to pay my car off in 2 years instead of 5. And then when I finally looked at what the numbers came up to, I was like, my budget don't stretch that far in a month. So it was a reality check for me that I can be as ambitious as I want on paper, but if the numbers don't add up, they don't add up. So then you go back and you adjust the plan. So again, it just gives you that level of control, and it does it all for you in one place so that it's realistic. So that's why we encourage people to do both $1 billion challenge and dfree at the same time, because it'll show you when you start getting to like step 6 and step 7, how you can actually achieve your goals and how realistic it is. Even with savings, when I first started saving, I used to say, I want to put away $1,000 a month. I'm going to put away $1,000 a month. Once you do your spending plan and once you do your budget and all of that, you may realize you don't have $1,000 a month to save. And I would get mad at the end of every month because I couldn't save this $1,000, but I didn't realize my bill, it just wasn't realistic. So that's what this is about, is being realistic about your money so it works wherever you are. I had a young lady, just to show you how diverse the classes are, I had one young woman who was about 23. She had just lost her job, so she's unemployed. I had a husband, he's married, has a wife and family, who had just taken on his mom and his mother-in-law had moved into the house with him. So that's a totally different financial situation. And then I had another young woman who's single, making $200,000 a year, who can't save any money. Why? Because she spends it all. She's single and she has it, so she spends it. So again, 3 different financial situations, all sitting in the same classroom, and the same principles apply. And what you have to do is you just adjust and tailor it. So when we talked about spending, the young woman who spends $200,000 a year, she had given up shoe shopping for Lent. So when we got to the point about spending and keeping track of spending, I had her write down her urges to spend. When are you going to, when you feel like you need to go shoe shopping. Whereas the young woman who was unemployed, she had to really track dollar for dollar how much she was spending. And then the other gentleman was tracking what you're spending in your house, and then what's the additional spending you have now that you have other people. So again, same message, you just adjust how it applies to everybody, and you'll get into the habit of that once you're in the class. So again, step 6 is setting the timer and looking at how fast you can pay things off and how fast you can accumulate wealth. All right, and then we have level 3. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to go through the last 2 levels.
Okay. Are you getting something out of this? All right. Why don't I just pause quickly, though, for just some questions, because I feel like we're giving you a lot of information, and I know we're trying to so, Tamika, this doesn't work when you and I go back and forth, right? I'm doing like this, and Tamika's doing like that. Can you help me adjust this? I know. Yeah, maybe I'll just pull it out like this, and then do like this. All right, there we go. Okay. So I want to just take a few questions, and then we can keep going, because I think you're getting a lot of information at once, and I don't want you to feel like you can't ask questions. Oh, we do have another mic there. Thank you. Because we have people online, too, and we want to make sure they hear your question. Thanks, Morella.
As a trained therapist, how long do you let that self-disclosure or self-actualization or that epiphany moment come when they're realizing that, wow, it is more than just me spending? So is that scripted as well, or do you have a gauge about how long do you let that go?
All right. So that's an excellent question. That's not scripted, but what we do talk about is time management of the class, because you're right. Some people will come in and they're very excited, and they can talk for an hour about their epiphany, right? But the class is only an hour and a half. So we do give you strategies for bringing them back in. And also, if you feel like it is getting a little too personal and you can look at the body language of others, then you can also bring it back in and say, okay, that was good. Why don't we talk a little bit more about that after class? And that's another way to kind of bring them back. Or that was a great example without cutting them off. That was a great example, let me, expand on that. So there's different ways as a facilitator that you can bring them back in, because there is a balance there. The first class, people won't share as much. As they start to warm up to one another, they become a group. And within that group, there's a certain level of trust that goes on. And so you'll have to be able to read the group to see what's appropriate. And it'll be different for every situation based on how well people know one another. Any other questions? You're receiving all of this? Okay. No questions? Okay. Excellent. All right. So why don't we keep going to level 3? Still adjusting here. All right. So I'm knocking anything off the podium. So Tamika gave you a lot of good information. So we said we start each class with a Bible verse, and that really does, as she said, get us on one accord and just kind of clear the room of any other energy that's not about dfree, right? We also make sure that within the book, as she said, although there's not a lot of financial information that we just talked about, when you look at the workbook, there's a lot of activity that they take home and do. And so when she talked about the snowball effect, they actually have to go home and list all their credit cards, and they work through the worksheet. So in class, we do it with a third party. That's why you have Claude and Grace in the book, because, we like to solve other people's problems, not our own problems. But after you finish solving the world's problems, you can go home and work on yourself. And if you have a spouse, hopefully you invite them in the room and you can work on it together, because as a family, you really want to experience this together. And if you have children, please invite them in the room so that they don't start off, where you left off. They start off on this journey with you, so that we can make sure that as a family unit, we're moving people forward. And sorors, even though we may lead the way, we got to bring the men along, right? So we have to make sure that it's a family initiative. And when they go home and do those exercises, they'll really start to uncover things, especially in the first class. We ask them to take inventory of all those bills and those finances before they even get to the class, list them out, and then we can start to work on them indirectly by exposing them to different strategies that they can use at home. So it's important for them to be able to do those at-home assignments, because that's what's going to keep them moving forward in the class. So Tamika's taken you through steps 1 and 2, and step 3, level 3, is continuing the journey to financial freedom. And it's really about saving, because we're moving through this continuum, and now you have your emergency funds, or at least you understand it, because in 12 weeks, I don't think that everybody will be dfree. I'm just keeping it real. We'll have the strategies and the mentality and understand, but if it was easy, then we would have more people in our community dfree. So this is hard work. It's complex, and we're talking about breaking strongholds and changing lifestyles. So it does take a while, but through the curriculum, we'll take you through all the steps. And that's why some people actually come back through again after they finish, when they're in a different place in their life. So what step 3 is all about is starting that journey of saving and building wealth. So we start to talk about different ways of obtaining wealth. We talk about the honor system, participating in the controlled and investment groups, and really supporting one another in that space. You could bring in speakers as well to your workshops, where you could bring in financial experts to talk about wealth planning and wealth building. We do that here as well. But most importantly, you got to have a plan. So now that you're on your way, we start to work with you on building a plan. And you have to be very aware of your own resources, your habits, and what you need in your lifestyle, the lifestyle that you're living. So we rely on the community. So we celebrate those successes, as Tamika talked about. And then we give you an assignment, because along this journey, now you're into the 7th week. So here, by now, you should have a financial advisor that you're engaging with, because we're not giving you professional financial advice. We're giving you strategies, and we're giving you practical approaches to how you can change your lifestyle. So you want to make sure that they're engaging. So what I do here is make sure that we bring those resources to the church. So on Saturdays, in addition to the seminars, we have financial advisors who can help you one-on-one. And we don't charge for any of this, because here is a ministry. But we do have people that can help you one-on-one, because it's important that you look at your own personal finances in order to move this journey along. And so it's important that they do that. They have a tax advisor, because some people are doing their taxes themselves and they may not know. They may be building up opportunities for penalties and get caught later. And again, that throws you right back into debt. So it's about awareness and education. And then the next step, step 8, is minimizing the stress. How many people know it's very stressful to be in debt? You got folks out there who won't answer their phone, won't open their mail. You got bill collectors chasing them, and you call them. I say, hey, is so-and-so home? Who wants to know? I'm thinking, okay. And then I say, hi, I'm Michelle Dutton. I'm from First Baptist, the dfree. Oh, hey, how you doing? But it's like a totally different person from when I just call and say, good morning. Can I speak to whoever the person is? And it's interesting to me because that's hard work. And it's stressful. And so what we talk about is disclosing all of that and just really being able to deal with it. And a lot of people don't know that you can call some of these folks, your bill collectors, your credit cards, and you can organize it in such a way, and we work through this in the curriculum, so that you make it easier on yourself. You can put all your credit cards on the same day. You can change the due date. I call my credit card company and ask them to reduce the interest rates, and very rarely do they say no, right? So we just try to equip you to really create a good plan there. And then we talk about, when we talk about protecting wealth, there's exercises here. Do you have a retirement fund that you contribute to? The whole discussion I was having earlier when I talked about protecting wealth, imagining what it will look like. Do you have a will? If you have children, do they have a trust fund? Have you done estate planning, or are you just going to make sure that, when you pass on, your children have to deal with the estate tax and all of that because you haven't planned properly, or the probate tax? So it's all about planning and equipping in this stage. Life insurance, do you have your beneficiaries set up right? And do you really just have control? So that's all about building a good plan. And once again, we talk about it through exercises in the class, but then you have to go home and really start to work on that. And that's why I said the process may take longer than 12 weeks, but you give them the foundation to get started, and then we equip them each month with support along the way. And then we have this method that we call the DIME method, and looking at how much insurance you need. And one of our corporate sponsors, Prudential, helps with this as well as they talk to folks. But just knowing your current debt. Do you know some people don't know their current debt level because they're afraid to add it up? Now, whether you know or not, it's not going to change, right? But some people just don't want to deal with that. When Tamika talked about the budget, how many people really list everything that they spend so that they can see their spending habits? It tells you a lot if you're willing to do it, but it's a scary thing to track every single thing that leaves. It's a lot of work, but it does give you, some insight into what you're doing. And your values may not be reflected by how you're spending your money because you're doing this spontaneous spend, and then when you go to do something important, you don't have enough money to do it, right? I have a lot of examples of that, but I won't get into that. So we look at your income. You look at your income. We don't look at your personal information. Your mortgage, your remaining mortgage, because that's a big debt for some folks. And then your education, college plans if you have children, because, once you start to do better, a lot of that aid is no longer available. And, we're in an interesting space within our community right now. When I grew up, I had a lot of financial aid because we were low income. But now that I'm doing better, my daughter has no financial aid unless there's something specific about her academics. So I have to plan differently than what my parents planned for me, right? And so with that, we have to make sure that we're continuing to plan forward. So we go through those methodologies within the class, and we help people through. And if you look at the workbook, there's exercises in there that they complete to work that through. So talked about minimizing the stress. Did I talk about minimizing the stress? Yes. So the next one is maintaining the focus. And the goal for this section is to really have meaningful steps towards your goal. Make sure you're celebrating those victories, and Tamika touched on that a little bit, to make sure that we're disclosing some of the victories, because people get discouraged, especially going into session 3, and we're moving at a quick pace, and they're feeling like, wow, I haven't paid off anything. I still don't understand. They talked about that snowball method. I don't see how I can get there. And I've had people come to me and say, I just don't think I can keep up. But that's when, as a facilitator, right before that breakthrough is usually when you do want to give up, when you have to encourage them through your stories and through the testimonies. And that's why it's so important in class to celebrate those little wins, to let them know that progress is happening. Nobody wants to be a part of a class and all we do is come and talk about how we can't make it, right? So as the facilitator, you got to keep that energy going. If someone doesn't show up, call them and see what's going on. One of the classes, someone said, I just have so many bills, I can't even get them organized. Well, not coming to class is not going to fix it, right? So we have to support one another and encourage one another, pray for one another, and help. Because I may not want to get with them and go through their bills because that's personal, and then they may feel a little weird in class if I know too much. But I want to connect them with somebody who can help them go through those bills and straighten them up and then come to class. And that's why it's important to connect and have a support group, right? So we talk about that, and then just remaining focused on achieving that long-term goal. One of the things we do in Class 1 is we have everybody write down 3 goals. And this is what they want to accomplish within a year, right? And then we put them in an envelope, have them just put their address on it, and then we put them away. And then at a really good time, usually when they're almost finished the 3 months, that's a good time for me to drop them in the mail and send them back and see what it looks like. Because, you know, you're very energized in class, and you're very energized when we're talking about it. But if I just check on you 3 months later, have you changed anything? Have your goals changed? Have you realized any goals? So it's just a little quick check that we do as well. So just checking in with, are you still heading down the path that you wanted to head down with your goals? So we talked about most of this. And then there's home exercises, just recapping on taking that personal inventory and staying committed for the journey, because this is all about the building wealth. And then the last component that we go through is giving back. And as Tamika said, you're already on this journey of giving back just by being willing to help get this further out and extend it into the community. So it's really about what you're doing for others collectively. And so for us, we talk about, now that you are starting to understand better spending habits, we talk about tithing, because, you know, when you know better, you do better. And this is really a spiritual journey. Because if it was just a transactional investment, I think people could get there sooner. But people spend for different reasons. And sometimes there's something going on in the inside that we're not even scratching the surface of. People are hurting for different reasons. And the answer to everything is to spend. You know, some people may shop. Some people may go out to eat. Some people, you know, the social stuff takes money. And so when you get to the root of what is it, why do you need to keep up with the Joneses? Why you got to look like everybody else, right? What is it that's driving you there? And are you pleasing God or are you pleasing man? So it really does come back to, who are you? What are you representing? And what is this that's driving you to, you know, spend the way that you're spending? And so as we grow spiritually, then we understand that, you know, God blesses us based on what we can do, what he needs us to do, where he's calling us to be. And for level 3, the scripture is, whoever, you know, is trusted with little can be trusted with much. So sometimes we pray for things and we're not ready for them, right? Some people pray for $1 million, but they don't know how to manage, you know, $1,000. So if God blesses you with that $1 million, you may hurt yourself, right? And so we have to be careful with that and just make sure that we're linking to this whole giving back and understanding where we are spiritually and then how we help others along this journey, so that it's a holistic journey. It's just like when you diet. We can control your calorie intake and output, but if we don't understand why you go eat ice cream when you're feeling sad, then it doesn't matter. It's the same thing with money. So we talk about that. We talk about tithing. We talk about faith in this whole give back component. And depending on which organization you're in, you'll be able to tailor that to the needs of your organization. You know, for the sorority, we are based on Christian principles, so we can certainly talk about faith. But we can also talk about how we continue to give Delta, because we have so many events and fundraisers and things. So maybe you have to have a Delta fund. Someone shared that with me as a testimony, and it was a Zeta. Jasmine, and it was funny, she said to me, one thing I've learned about this is I want to do so many things because we have so many opportunities, but this was my biggest issue. You know, she's not been out of college for a while, so now she knows she can't spend on Zeta what she didn't put in her Zeta account, and so she has a special account for that. She's decided what percentage she wants to put in there, and so when she wants to go and travel and do things with the sorority, then that's the fund that it comes from. If it's nothing there, then she can't go. That helps you prioritize your decisions. Right? So you can really adapt this to whatever organization you want. It's just about, what are you preparing to spend so that you're not spending yourself into a crisis. All right? If I keep going here so I talked a little bit about this. So it's trust and honesty in handling your money. Money management is really a true worship, because everything that we have really belongs to God. You know, when we talk about tithing and that 10%, then, you know, we're just giving him back just a small percentage of what he's given us. But he's given us 90. We're just, you know, giving 10. So we talk about that a little bit, the mindful stewardship. And then is just to really, you know, learn to live out the abundance of God, and everything has to be done in moderation. So we just connect it full circle on what people are looking at. Yes, you know what? My problem is I'm doing it here, not there. All right. Thank you. So the goal of the last session is to make a difference in the lives of others, and that's where we talk about the dfree victories. I've talked about the testimonies on Sundays, and like I said, even if you do it in your chapter meeting, you'd be surprised. At first it might seem kind of, weird. We stopped for a while, and somebody said, I had a testimony, and you're not having dfree Sundays. It's like, what are you doing? And so I was surprised at how much this really does make a difference, but it does. And people also ask questions about, when somebody said they had 2 mortgages and they paid off one and then they were trying to do something, and it starts a whole nother conversation about how they can do that as well. So it's an opportunity that we take advantage of, all right? So any questions on any of the modules? The script is in there, the PowerPoints are in there, and we're here for references as well. It's a lot of information, but it'll come together nicely because as you're reading through the PowerPoints, you have the script right next to it. And then you're looking through the book to see the activities. It does come together. It takes planning, but it comes together very nicely. So any questions before we jump into the other section on how to get started?
Pass around the script so that they can see it.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. While Tamika passes that around, I'm just going to talk a few minutes on just how to get started, because that's another component, just go there, that we want to talk about. So when we think about what we need, I talked about the vision. So this is the vision of dfree, but what I want you to visualize is what's the vision of what you want to implement within your space. And this has to be personal because we're all in different places, but you know your audience. So what's the vision? Are we going to, look at it as a community event and you're going to target a particular community, a particular group, a particular church that I know you may want to take it back to? So what's the vision of what you're going to implement in this ministry? And then you have to think about what's the goal. When we launched this at First Baptist, when we did our relaunch, my goal was to have the church commit to $1 million in debt. So I wanted people to go on that $1 Billion Challenge website and pay off $1 million in debt, because that's the what. And most people can rally around a what before they can rally around a how. You know what I mean? So it's very tangible to say, I have, $20,000 in debt, and I want to pay off $2,000 this year, after I looked at my income and expense and all of that. So have some clear goal that you really want to achieve, and let people sign up for that. Because after you sign up for that, what's the question? How am I going to do that? And that's when you sign up for support and for the process. dfree is the process to help get them to achieving that goal. And so when you lay out the vision clearly, then people will follow. Because there are so many people out there that need help. I mean, there's just the floodgates can open on you if you're not careful, right? And then you need the buy-in of the leadership. So, whatever organization or church you're looking at, it's really critical to have the leadership buy in. So for me, it's easy because it's Pastor Sori's, right? And then I also need to overcome that hurdle, though, of making sure that the ministry leaders buy in. Because for this to be sustainable and repeatable, I need to make sure that every ministry in this church has someone who's committed to dfree, committing to celebrating it on a monthly basis, and making sure that when we have things, they're getting the word out to each one of their members, right? So that could be the same thing, in churches. You can engage the choirs, the ushers. Within Delta, you may have all the different committees have someone commit. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, you know how to reach your people, right? And it's different for every chapter, different for every church, different for every organization. But it's transferable when you think about it. You know who the movers and the shakers are. That's who we got to get engaged, right? And then you have the formal leadership training. So we're giving you, an accelerated training here, so that you can go out and do training. But the formal training is working them through that 12-step process that we just talked about. And then you have structured members education, as they go through the classes. And then you have the creation of the movement, which say, now what support do we need to help them overcome this stronghold? Now they have the tools, but how do we get them to use the tools, right? And to use the tools, you need help and you need support. And then the ongoing visibility is the celebration. Have graduations, Put it in First Friday. Let people know you're doing some good stuff here that others may want to engage in. And so just get the word out and make it visible, because so many people want to participate. And even in our ministry here, people will ask me, well, I want to help, but I'm not dfree yet. Well, most of the folks aren't dfree. It's a journey that we're on. Some are, but it's a journey. And we just want to meet you where you are and move forward. And you want all different testimonies, people who are D-free, people who are not D-free, people who have tried to be D-free and fell off the wagon and now they're back again, because it'll be encouragement to someone, right? So to do that, I mean, when you pull it together in that manner, then you have something that's sustainable and repeatable that you can implement, all right? So quickly, for the roles and responsibilities, you need a leader. I serve as the ministry leader here. I make sure that we bring the whole program together and the different components come together and work, and I keep people energized around the vision. We have a program administrator. The First Baptist Church administrator is here also. Kimberly Smith is the administrator. It's a lot of work, right? Because you're tracking the classes, you're tracking, what's going on, you're making sure that logistics are done. So that can also be implemented differently based on your organization. But somebody has to do the administrative part of it, right? Ambassadors, just making sure that you're getting external relationships. And this is more if you're looking at growing the relationship across organizations. You need a champion who's going to work internally to be an advocate, to say, hey, you coming to the D-Free meeting? Somebody has to help spread the word, right? A trainer who can facilitate the workshop, and I think most of you are signed up to do that. A marketing team to help promote the awareness. Nothing like planning a big event and 5 people show up. So someone has to be able to get the word out, right? Then a technology lead, because we are moving our platform to online, and we have Sanaya as our technology lead. We stream live because you can really meet the masses. And plus, in this day and age, if you're not online and streaming, then you're just not in there, So you may not be able to get there, for each chapter or for each church, but to the extent that you can, then I encourage that. So you do want someone to have the technology lead who can help you work things. If nothing else, just getting the PowerPoints on the screen and projecting and things like that. But you're always welcome to take advantage of our live streaming as well. And then just really creating that overall culture. Like I said, set the goal, launch it, get the classes going. Host seminars or join our seminars, and we're going to try to live stream as many as we can because you need that support. And if you don't have access to monthly seminars, then just have some monthly follow-up after the training so that it's not a 12 weeks and done, that you encourage one another to keep going. And then celebrate, when people graduate, celebrate. And then make sure that you're integrating it throughout your different organizations, committees or ministries, depending on what you're involved with. And so I would say when we looked at the 12-week workshop, the first time around we did all 12 weeks back to back. Second time around we said, well, let's organize them so that you do 4 weeks at a time, because people were a little afraid to commit to 12 weeks. But you know your culture, you know your organization, so you can play with this and just own it. Do what's right for you, because every organization, congregation is going to be a little different. So you just have to own the material and be comfortable with it. Timing-wise, it takes some time to roll out the process. Just to identify the leadership sometimes take a couple of months, right? In larger organizations. In smaller organizations, I think you can get this done if you've already identified your trainers, the leader is bought in, your chapter presidents have bought in. At least for the 4 chapters here, I started with the chapter presidents so they know that you're here, they're a part of it. So, you can really get going quickly once you organize yourself around the materials that we've given you. And we're here to support you. We can come out, we can help you with the books. We can help you get your materials together. We'll make ourselves available to get it going. All right? Leadership training and ministry coordination. It takes about 2 months to run through the pilots and all of that. But like I said, this is for new organizations just getting started when we think about the timing of that. And then creating the awareness and enthusiasm. Once you get all ready to go, you have to make sure that you're building this up in the community, in your organization, so that you have enough people signing up and you're not begging people to come to the workshop. So create some excitement around that. And then you're ready for your launch. And for us, we had, when we launched, we started with a pilot class. Well, actually, we started with a focus group, and we got people excited about it, got their input, tweaked the curriculum. And then as they came back, we had a pilot class, and then we started our D-Free Sundays. So we just kind of layered in introducing people to D-Free. If it's a smaller organization, you can certainly start with your pilot classes as the official launch. And then from there, you can just think about how do we keep this alive in our organization. All right? Just to hit on this really quickly, it's very important to have statistics around this. With any movement, if you don't have statistics to show the growth of the organization, then it's not going to be successful. So we've partnered with success measures where we do benchmarking before the class and after the class so that we can see the movement. And it's not just with the classes. Some people come in here and they hear pastor talking about it. They'll hear the dfree Sunday testimony, and they will come in and get, some education just from that without even going through the 12 weeks, and then they have a testimony. So we try to capture that data, benchmark, and then at the end look at the stats for people that are becoming dfree. One of the biggest stats we have is on the $1 Billion Challenge website. We're up to $1 million of people committing to pay off debt. And so we're putting in stats whenever we can. So it's not just an emotional discussion. It's one that's fact-based and based on numbers. So the data and the reporting is very important, and we work with you on that as well. And actually, we administer that site. So Tamika actually administers that for the groups that we have now so that we can, send the surveys, bring them back. They're anonymous. We're not getting into people's personal business, but we do it by number. And that way we can see the growth of the community that we're serving. And then most importantly, celebrate the success. Make it fun. Have testimonies, have graduations, have a tip of the week. You can send that out electronically. You can put a whole bunch of them in and program them to go out, once a week. So there's a lot of good ways just to stay connected, but just make sure that you keep it fresh so it just doesn't die out and become just mechanically, did I pay off a credit card or, am I paying my bills down? I talked about how to stay connected with us already. I covered this. And then, as Tamika started with, it really just stands for eliminating debt, getting out of delinquency and deficits in order to establish deposits, dividends, and deeds. So we can move towards ownership. All right? So any questions on any of that? And then there's websites here. One other resource I wanted you to be aware of is in your dfree book, towards the back of the book. I don't think I brought one up here with me. There's a resource section, and there's a lot of websites in there that you can take a look at on dfree, on money management. And so we have them in there. Some of them are organizations that will help for free. Some have a cost. Thanks. So starting on page 209, there's the dfree resources. So I encourage you to look at them. They have financial literacy, banking, debt reduction, money management, credit cards, and even books that you can read on the topics. So as people get more involved, there's sites that you can refer them to as far as resources. All right? Any questions on any of that? It's a lot of information, but it's all there for you. Tamika, can you do a mic?
As a trainer, do you recommend the trainers go through the 12 classes prior to training? You know what I mean? Go through the entire program, or do most trainers, are they able to get in and just start?
Mm-hmm. Great question. The question was, should the trainers go through the 12-step process too? So it's not necessary. I mean, it's helpful if you do, but it's not necessary. So when we first started, I didn't put the trainers through the whole program, but what we do is we team teach. So for the first group that went through, we went through a train-the-trainer session similar to this, and then we got together, went through the material as a team. And then for the first session, I had at least 3 teachers in the class together so that they could work with one another on the material, because it is a lot of material. But it's not necessary. It's helpful.
And I'd also say, if you're thinking about going through the dfree process for yourself, teaching it is actually helpful. So like I was going through dfree as I was teaching dfree, so I was able to share my testimony with people as I was going through the process. And actually brought the class a little bit closer together because they feel like you're vested in it. So every time I talk about it, I'm putting myself on the line all the time. Like, I struggle with buying these shoes this week, guys. And it was really helpful for them to understand it, and also helpful for me. Like, I think I'm on my 3rd dfree class, so I'm going through the process every 12 weeks. So it's a really good process to go through. But don't be afraid of teaching if you haven't gone through it yourself. At the very least, I would recommend reading the book. And then going through the workbook yourself. Like, you could read the book in a Saturday if you just sat down for a day to read it. And the workbook, the same thing. Like, you could take yourself through the exercises in a week or so. Your life is not going to change, but at least you know what the exercises are and know what they're going through. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tamika can read the book in a Saturday. It might take a couple days for the rest of us. See, that's how lawyers are. They do like this, right, Deidre? The rest of us, it might take a few days. I'm an engineer, so I got to look at everything and look at all the facts and the data and look stuff up. So, but it is a quick read. And like she said, go through the workbook. Get yourself familiar with the exercises. And it's good to complete the whole thing before you start. But if not, at least stay 1 or 2 sessions ahead so that you can plan properly. All right? Any other questions? Okay. So this brings us, yep. So I think since we already had our break, we can probably just keep going. All right. So we're going to switch gears so that we can actually walk you through one of the lessons so that you can see what it's like to really walk through the material. Because right now we just took you on the helicopter ride across the whole curriculum, right? So now we're going to dig into lesson 1. Tamika passed out the scripts and the slides, so you'll be able to see what it's actually like and experience a little bit more. Now, if this was different, if we weren't in a sanctuary, and if we weren't, kind of spread out, what we normally do is break you up into groups and then let you actually teach the lesson, is what we normally do for our trainer-trainers. So this will be simulated for that, all right? So they're going to change decks up there. Oh, maybe they're going to show me. Okay. And Tamika, you're doing that? All right. Any other questions while we wait for them to, and if you want, you can just stand and stretch a little bit before we get into this next section. So is this helpful information? Do you think you're getting what you need, or are you feeling like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? You ready? Okay. All right. Tamika, did you of the script and the PowerPoints?
We're going to email it to you. You guys will get access to a kind of private website so that you can go on and download all the stuff we went over today.
She was saying as we're going through it.
You can hold on to that copy.
She doesn't have a copy.
Oh, there was one that was going around. Yep, that's it.
That's beautiful.
I think there's 1 or 2 more.
Okay.
3 more. Okay. All right, so this should be fun because this is actually what you guys are going to teach if you were in a class. We didn't do copies for everybody because we're just walking you through it. If we were going to make you teach it, everybody would have had the copy and you would have had to have homework before you got here. We tried to spare y'all on a Saturday morning of having to do homework and all that stuff. Yeah, but you'll be able to download. You're going to get literally everything that you need to teach dfree, all 12 presentations, the entire leader's guide, which includes, in addition to the script for each presentation, there's information before it that tells you what to prepare for. There's information after it to tell you what to do later. The leader's guide is very thorough. You'll get all the decks and everything that you need to go through dfree. And it all, right now, is branded in this red and black to match the book. We're actually going to be re-releasing the dfree book this summer. So the materials will change probably around July, August timeframe. But the information is the same, so don't worry about that, and we'll keep you guys updated as we go through the material. So we'll treat this as if we're in an actual dfree class. I won't make you guys read out loud or anything, but I just want to show you kind of how it's organized now that we've talked through it. So you'll start here, and then what we do is we start out with the learning objectives for the entire program. We haven't prayed yet. We're going to get to it. But you take everyone through the actual objectives of dfree. The purpose of it is to guide you on your personal journey to financial freedom. Again, I stress the personal part because you're meeting people where they are. So whatever financial issues they come in with, they need to be tailoring their experience to that particular need. So if there's something specific that they're working on, just keep that in the back of their minds. You may want to, in the first session, go around the room, have people introduce themselves. You will get to a point where you actually write down the goals and everything like that. But just ask people what their expectations are of the class. So what do you hope to get out of dfree, so that you can kind of align that. And then you know as an instructor kind of what you're dealing with. And then you'll take them through what economic empowerment is all about. You give them that definition. You'll give them a little bit of background on dfree. There's an agenda at the beginning of each presentation that kind of takes you through where you are in the process. So it helps to level set as people are going through kind of where you are in those 4 different levels. So we're in level 1, getting started. You always want to tell people about $1 Billion Challenge so that they can go in and update their goals even before they get to class. they should have hopefully started a $1 billion challenge account. It's part of the pre-work, which again, you'll also see in your script. We tell you what you should recommend for people to do before they come to class. All right. So here's the pre-work. See, when I tell you it's scripted, like there is nothing that you won't forget in this. So there's a pre-work slide that tells people what they should have done before they came to class. If they didn't do it, guess what? There'll be a chance to go through it while you're in class. Most of the pre-work is to read the chapter that you're going to be discussing for that day and then go through the workbook exercises so that they just have a frame of reference before they get into the class. So remember we talked about icebreakers and we talked about values, about time and money. The very first icebreaker, we have these large dollar bills. You can get them at Party City or anything, like it's like play money. And so you give that out in your first class. And again, this is in the script. It'll tell you what you need to prepare before you get there. But you give out the play money, and what you do is you ask people to talk about their values. So you say, okay, my name is Tamika, and I value these 3 things. So that's what you're going to write down on the on the back of the dollar bill. So this person values intelligence, creativity, and dependability. So as they go through this, that's kind of their frame of reference. So if this is what you say is important to you, as you think about your financial habits, how do they reflect those values? You say you're dependable, but you pay your bills late. That's not necessarily being dependable. You value intellect, but you don't pay Sally Mae on time. You got your degree, but you're not paying for it. Or, so it just encourages you to reflect back on these 3 values. And it's personal to each person. They don't necessarily have to share what they wrote down, but it's that internal self-check about how you're spending your money and your attitudes and behavior. So Michelle is handing out an example of the dollars. So if you were in class, we would say, take a few minutes, write down what you value. And it's really helpful because it level sets and it kind of holds people accountable for what they say they value. So you could think about that today as you're going through the dfree process. You'll talk a little bit about our partners. We have a script for that. And now it's time. We're into week 1, level 1. It is happening. You guys are here. It's time. So level 1 is getting started. Again, this is the basics of dfree. So you will go through the learning objectives and the goals. And then we're going to pray. So we've already prayed ourselves into training, but the prayer is there. It is written. It is in your script. And then admit the problem. So the very first part of the deck is if you open up your dfree textbook to chapter 1 and look at, let's see. If you're just looking at, I'm in the introduction, sorry. The subheadings in level 1. So step 1 is admit the problem. And then if you go to page 37. We won't read through it, but you'll see like the cost of a full tank of gas. Like you'll see the subheadings in there. Guess what matches? When you see just discussion points, the cost of a full tank of gas. So it is aligned specifically to the book. So as you go through each section, we encourage you to kind of talk through, or maybe you'll have a volunteer to say, hey, what was this section of the book about? Did anything stand out for you in this text? And there's a few key things. You can figure out what is going to be important to your class. You will never make it through all of this material in a 90-minute session. And that's about the time that we recommend. Anything longer than that, you're going to lose people. Anything shorter, and you really will never make it through. So a 90-minute session is what we normally recommend. When we do it in the evenings, we do 7:15 to 8:45. When we do it during the weekends, we either do like a 10 to 11:30, or on Sundays, we do 11 to 12:30. So just to give you an idea of the time frames that we work with. But again, all of this is keyed directly to the book. So you'll start with the textbook, and then you'll do your video. So it's important to make sure you have internet access in the room that you're using and speakers so that people can hear the video. Most of them are about 7 minutes long. So you'll watch the video and discuss it. And again, for people that may not have done the pre-work, once you show the video, they will understand what you talked about. So at no point should anybody really feel lost in the class. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that. It's not a situation where, things happen. We're adults. We may not read. We may not have time to go through the work. But people should still be encouraged to come to class because they know that they're going to get the material through some way or another. Sorry. The videos are about 7 minutes long. Yeah, none of them are longer than 10 minutes. And they're, again, already baked into the presentation, so you don't have to worry about going to find separate links. You click on it from here, and it should be already queued up to go. And then we include statistics in each of the presentations. We advise that you guys try to update them regularly. Like we're going through a research process now to kind of update all the statistics in the deck. But what we do is we try to make it as real life as possible so that people can see not just the impact on them personally, but what it looks like nationally and even globally in some instances around debt and financial management. So you go through the statistics, and there's some real life activities to kind of bring it back home for people. And then learning elements. So now we've gone through the textbook, we talked about Pastor Sori's story, and now we're into the workbook, and we're talking about our friends who? Claude and Grace, because we don't want to talk about ourselves just yet. So you would either have someone read through, there's a short passage at the beginning of each workbook section. You can have somebody read it out loud or somebody summarize it. And then there's all the different activities that are within that chapter are listed here. Again, you will never get through all of this. Pick what's important to you. So as you go through the workbook, if you say, okay, this activity feels like it might be good for my group, then that's the one you will focus on, one or two things that you will focus on in class. Towards the latter part of the workbook exercises for each chapter is when they really get into their own personal business. The first part of the workbook chapter is Claude and Grace specific. So if you want to stay with Claude and Grace and then ask if anybody had questions about the other homework so that you're not getting into like you don't necessarily have to initiate the personal interaction. You can stick with Claude and Grace and then somebody says, well, when I did my spending plan, I noticed X. Now that opens the door to things being a little bit more personal. So you don't necessarily have to force it as an instructor, but if they're interested in it, they will talk about it. Any questions as we're going through? But see, it's really easy. It's all laid out here for you. Every deck almost looks exactly the same. So it's up to you to create kind of that personal experience. And then you'll get next steps. So it will tell them what their homework is, read the next chapter, look at the next video, do the next set of workbook exercises, update your $1 billion challenge, and you tell them when and where the next class is going to be. And then guess what? You pray again, and you go home. And that's it. And then it goes to week 2. So all the presentations are put together. All of them flow the exact same way. It's going to be your prayer, your icebreaker, the textbook, the video, the workbook, the prayer. That's it. So where it's going to get fun is whatever you bring to the class and whatever the class discussion is going to be, so they know what to expect week after week. You guys don't have to do much with these slides at all. You don't have to update the room. You can write that on the chalkboard if you want. It is very scripted. We try to make it as easy as possible so that you can focus on the experience and not necessarily have to focus on creating new material. Do we have any questions online, Sanaya? I know I blew through that really quickly. Oh. Let's see. I think we're youtube.com/mydfree. So you can see, go ahead. If you go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/mydfree, there's tons of testimonials up there for people that have already gone through dfree. That's also where all the All Right TV episodes can be accessed. And it's just helpful to kind of get an idea. Like, we're talking to you about it now, but watching the testimonials, and you can encourage your members to just, if they want to get a preview, to watch some of that, because you really get a chance to see the impact of dfree. Like, we don't over dramatize this. Like, it is stuff that happens on the fly. A lot of them are things that Pastor has taped on his cell phone with people just talking to him about it, and it's really powerful to watch what people have experienced through this.
I'm sorry, just a logistical thing. So when you're going through the scripted presentation, the videos are not embedded, so you have to go to the YouTube channel to bring them up. Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that.
Yeah, we didn't embed them. I can't remember what the reason was, but they're not embedded. Oh, sorry, because that series was done through All Right TV, and so the content lives on their page as opposed to it being something that we can embed.
Right. But what I would say is to be ready as an instructor. What I would do is pull up my PowerPoint and then open another window and pull up the video, hit start, make sure it's all there, ready to go, rewind. And then any video or anything that I'm going to show, then I make sure I have each one lined up. And that way I'm clicking on windows versus hunting and searching and making it awkward for the class.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to say if you get to class about 30 minutes prior, like especially if you know your space, 30 minutes is more than enough to get set up, because you're going to have the slides and you're going to have your leader guide already. Everybody comes to class with their books, so you should be good to go in 30 minutes.
And also personalize it for your own style of teaching. For me, I like to have multiple media. So, I might want a flip chart, the overhead, the video, and then that way, as people, and always have post-it notes as people are talking, if they have things that you want to put to the side. I mean, make it interactive so that they can feel that we're not just talking at them, the whole time. So just own the material, make it yours, and, just work it based on their styles of learning and interacting to make it engaging. So the other thing is that as you're walking through the information, and thank you, Sanaya, she's getting questions online as well. The question was about pre-work. So when you first set this up, before you even get started, you want to start interacting with people, right? So before you came here, I made sure to send you a note. Sanaya sent you a note. We invite you. We have an orientation. So you want to engage. So a part of the process is you get pre-class work. So before they get here, Tamika mentioned you want them to read chapter 1 so that they're, understanding what this is all about. You want them to see the first video, which welcomes them to dfree. And so each class, you'll have some pre-class work that they'll need to complete. So you want to get used to, setting up a group list for your class, send out a welcome note, engaging them up front, and then give them the pre-class work. They have a survey they need to fill out from Success Measures so we can get that baseline data. Then they also have a commitment sheet to say you're going to commit your time to teaching and facilitating this process, but they have to commit their time to going through this process. So we give you a commitment sheet for them to sign as well, just saying they're committed to the process. So for class 1, you send all that out before the class starts. And then after the class, you want to send them a note thanking them for coming to the session, maybe doing a little recap, but then giving them pre-class work for the next class, because you always want that balance of what's going on in the class versus that homework, because in class we work on Claude and Grace. At home you work on you. So the homework is really more important than the classwork sometimes, right? So you want to make sure that they have that connection so they're looking for that next step. And so before each class they get their link, they get their work, and then they come back into the classroom.
Another question?
I just want to add a piece of, automating and making it easy for yourself. I don't know if within your organizations you have, say, email marketing systems. You can sign up for something like Constant Contact, which if you have a small list, and you can set those ahead of time. So what we're getting in the process of doing for our classes here at First Baptist, we are setting it up so when people get added to the list, they get their pre-work homework. Then they get a reminder before. So you're not having to remember to do that right before the class. So you can automate that. And if anybody's interested, because I was just talking to Tamika about, since you guys are doing this on behalf of dfree, we can help you set that up and do a training so you guys can figure out how to make that better for you.
Yes. Sanaya is our digital process expert. Love her to death. She makes things very, very easy. Like, we're working on content and all that stuff, and that's what you'll see. So when we talk about having those team members that do different things, it will be overwhelming if you try to do this yourself. And I know a lot of times when you're first starting out, you won't necessarily have a team. You are a one-man army. The beauty of having multiple people with multiple things is that you can kind of divide and conquer a lot. Like, I'll work a lot on the decks and putting together the material. Michelle is making sure that we have, everything happening from a ministry perspective. Kimberly is making sure all the back office stuff is done and that we have food and that we have a room. And then Sanaya is making sure that you guys are getting the updates and stuff on the website. So it's important to have a few different people that are dedicated to working on this so you can really divide and conquer.
Absolutely. This is a team sport.
Right.
If I didn't have a Tamika, a Kimberly, and a Sanaya, and a pastor, and an Art, and all the other people in the ministry, it couldn't be done, because I have a full-time job, just like most other folks. This is volunteer, and so it does take a lot, but God will give you everything that you need to get it done when you're called to do something. And when I look at this whole process that we've been through, I went to talk to Pastor about setting up a mentoring program for girls.
We all got sucked in.
And here I am. Because I said, in Delta we have the gyms, we have Delta Academy, we have all this good stuff, and we don't have a mentoring program for girls. So, me and a few other sorors from CJA came with our program and how we went to set this up. Now I'm doing dfree. So without the team, it couldn't be done. And I say that because it's not always difficult to do. Yes, Pastor, I said that. It's not always difficult to do, but we're doing good work here, and it just came together so easily, because I know it sounds like a lot, and that's why I share that story with you. My background is in engineering, but the process is so simple. You just have to have a will to do it. And, with the team that we've assembled here, we are reaching masses. So that's the excitement that you see from me, because we started off going in one direction, and now we're really giving people tools that they can use. So I am really blessed when I see people on Sundays with their testimonies talking about things they hadn't even thought about before. So just the possibility of this is the excitement. So it's not hard. It's just, being dedicated to getting the work done.
We had a question here.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned the team, and you had a list of roles. Okay. Is there like the top roles that you definitely need to fill versus the ones that could come a little bit later?
Excellent question, and especially for chapters. Here's what I would say, because we're going to be a secondary support system for you. So if you have, I would say, 2 or 3 people that learn the curriculum and are willing to teach and facilitate, and then, I think you can lean on your economic and development chairs as making sure that they're leading the initiative, and then, just someone to administrate. Just someone to say, how many people signed up, how many people are coming to class, because you want to capture your statistics. So I would start with that. Yeah. And then, like I say, we'll stay connected. But as it grows, invite people who are going through the classes to come on and help volunteer. So for dfree Sunday, and that's why I have 2 volunteers here today, I said, hey, we're doing some good work, but we need a few more workers, right? And you would be surprised. People would say, well, what do you want me to do? So, but I would at least start with trainers, somebody to lead and get the word out and just help pull it together, and then an administrator. Right. And that's why I asked each of the chapter presidents for 6 people, because I said if you have 6 people, you could really run this whole program, with no problem at all.
Yeah, but if you only have 2, a trainer and a leader, that's all you really need. If you have 3, a trainer, a leader, and an administrator, you can function for a little while. But what you will notice is that it will grow rapidly. So we're running, I think, 3 different dfree classes at a time here at the church. And so it's almost like managing a mini school, if you will. Now, for most organizations, you'll run one set of classes. But because we have different schedules and all that stuff, we try to give people options. Some of our larger churches, though, they're running a dfree class with 120 people every cycle. So they have a lot of numbers to deal with. So it's not like sending an email to 6 people and then responding. So something like a constant contact will really be helpful because you have a lot of people that you're managing. So again, it just depends on your organization and what you're used to functioning with. We will give you all the tools and the support that you need. We're also working on our list of just dfree churches and organizations, so that if there are people that are close to you that are doing dfree, So like we have a group of churches in Indianapolis that are doing dfree. There's one lead church that kind of started it, and then they've kind of spread it out to the community, but they share resources and programming. So if one church is doing a monthly seminar on credit, all the churches will send their people there. So when we do our seminars here at First Baptist, if you're in New Jersey, feel free. We encourage you, just send your people here so that we can leverage the opportunities. And if you're doing something at your church, let us know so that we can send people there as well. Like, our goal is not to have a monopoly on dfree. It really is just to be able to get the information out to people in the most effective manner. So as much as we can share, we do that.
Yeah, and something else I would encourage, because the reason why we started with the 4 chapters that we have here today, North Jersey, Monclair, Central Jersey, and Trenton, is because we're close enough where we can leverage one another. So let's make sure that we share information as you're getting started. When are your workshops? When are your seminars? Because maybe if somebody misses a seminar for one or a workshop, you can go to another chapter. So it may be hard when we're first getting started, but I would like to see us really create that, kind of a consortium where we can work together and help one another. Because if nothing else, if we have 4 chapters talking about being dfree, one of our national, initiatives is to get sorors to reduce this debt, right? When we think about the trillions of dollars, one thing that you'll hit on in the workbooks is the whole smartphone phenomena. Now, I work at Verizon, so I'm not down on that, right? But it's amazing. One of the stats in there is that, if we have over 42 million blacks, and if over half have smartphones, and if everybody's smartphone bill is almost $150 a month or more, imagine, when you do the math, we're talking trillions. Mm-hmm. We're talking national debt level right here in our community. So when you think about the opportunity, and then if you translate that into Delta and all the members that we have, if we really get behind reducing debt, then we can have a huge impact. So one of the things I would like to leverage is just with our proximity is how can we work together to support one another. We'll have our individual programs, but how can we work together to help support one another through this? So that's why we thought it would be good to have, 4 chapters, just thinking through how we put this together and get started.
Yep. And one of the other things logistically, just to talk about, the My dfree website, you can direct people there to get their books, to join the national mailing list. You guys should all be in the national mailing list so you know kind of what's going on. We have books here for sale at our bookstore. We also have some other books that we can make available for people to purchase. They're here at our church bookstore. Pastor also carries his lovely trusty suitcase. Tell him I said that if he's not listening, with books. So we try to make them available. One of the things that we do recommend as you're getting started is that you do encourage people that are participating to purchase their own books as opposed to giving them out. It is a very minimal investment. Like, all of you guys came here to train for free. We don't charge for the training that we do for the most part. We only ask that people purchase the book, because the reality is, if you're serious about getting out of debt, you need to invest in it. It is not, we don't get rich off these books by no means. If we would, we could probably shut down shop and go home. But the reality is, people need to have a vested interest in their own development. And I think the set is less than $25. It's $25, I think, max, to get both the book and the workbook. And for 12 weeks of training, $25 for 2 books. All right, there he is. Okay. Pastor just walked back in the room for the people that are online.
It's not even a pair of shoes, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're working on that. So once you guys get your schedules together, if you send it to us, we will post it so that people, if they go there, they can see your chapter and then when you actually have program. Yes, ours are listed there. Yes.
My questions are more directed because we're talking about rolling this out within the next 3 weeks.
Yep.
Okay. But I guess, so not having the script in hand, so there are workshops built in to the 12-week process already. For instance, so on level 2, when you talk about certain things, I forget which level you talk about estate planning. So we already have, so that's a workshop that will be, so could you talk more about that, please?
Yeah, good question. We're not there yet because for First Baptist, we have different classes going at different times, so we have people at different levels. But I will say what we were really building towards is having the first 4 weeks and having a speaker at the class for that week. And that could be a financial expert either in your chapter or in your community that may be able to come and speak to that topic. So the workshops that we have on the 3rd Saturday of every month, those are predefined topics that we have listed, right? So depending on where you are in your class, it may or may not be a topic. But I would recommend bringing in someone to talk, because that engagement sometimes is really, it breaks up the monotony of the class, but also it helps people to really engage at a different level, and also it's a resource. So here we have people in the banking industry, we have financial advisors, we have a ton of financial advisors. So you have to be careful that you don't look like you're recommending a brand, because we're not trying to sell or promote a brand. Right. We're selling and promoting concepts to help people become free, or tools. And so it's good to have, a variety of people. And I would say in the chapter, you even know, who you have information on what sorors are there that could speak to different topics, and maybe you want to line them up based on the curriculum.
Right. No. Any questions online, Sanaya? We have broken a dfree record because we scheduled this until 1, and we had a whole lot of material to go through. We'll stick around, and our pastor can offer some closing thoughts.
Yeah. Before we close, though, I would just, since we have a few minutes, is that okay, Pastor? Okay. So before we close, I would just say, if you're comfortable, I just wanted people to just kind of share ideas, because this is a unique setting,
right,
on what you're thinking about, because while you have this collective group here, then we can talk about how you get started. And I know, Morella, you've been talking a lot about what you want to do in Trenton, so that may also inspire some other ideas for what other chapters might think about for launch. So if you're comfortable, because I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but I know you're leading economic development, so I probably can't put you on the spot, right? just to talk about it, right? And I know that you're getting ready to start your launch, so maybe talk about your experience, just to share a little, because it may help people connect some dots here on how to get started. I know we're thinking about it in Monclair, right? And now you have that heavy burden because you two are here on how to get started.
It's
so
light.
I just want to
It's
make
very
sure
light.
that we connect with you and help you connect dots. Is that a good thing to do since we have a few more minutes?
Yeah, and I'll say at a most basic level to get started, if I had to summarize the process, so you guys are here, you've been trained. Literally, if you told people you were starting dfree, set a date to start your classes and have people register. That is that's the easiest way to do it. Commit to a date, have people sign up, and just go through the process. All the other stuff will come out of that, because once you set a date, then you have to market towards the date. You send out a flyer, you do whatever you do, and then you run the class. That's it. And then worry about all that additional stuff. The workshops, it'll come. But just if you get the class up and running, you're in a very, very good position. So I'll say that. Go ahead.
Well, I guess for Trenton, it sort of kind of God allowed it to fall in place. We had already planned as a chapter initiative to have a community-wide empowerment day. I'm sorry, I don't want to stand up.
Yeah, I was about to say, or come use the front mic. It might be better.
I'm used to it, right?
I knew.
So it was kind of natural for us because we had planned this community-wide empowerment day to focus on our 5-point thrust. So we already had it planned. It was something. Oh, here. Is this okay? All right. Thank you. So we already had it planned, and so when at Founders Day, this is when this all happened, the presidents got together and said, let's kick this off. So naturally, I am the chairperson for economic development for Trenton Alumni Chapter. So I said, okay, let's do it. I mean, I read the book. My church in Shiloh did this a couple of years ago, pre the workbook. So I was very familiar with some of the concepts. In fact, I already built some of the concepts in. Every, April for our chapters is Financial Fortitude Month. What the committee does is that we have a monthly, every day in April you do something financial. And a lot of what we do that month of April was taken straight from dfree, because my church has already been exposed to it about 4 or 5 years ago when Pastor initially put the book out. We got it on right ahead. So I knew it already. So it wasn't I didn't have to learn it per se, because I was very familiar with some of the concepts, the global concepts. This was pre the workbook. This was pre the rollout, everything we have now. So I'm like, wow, it really sort of kind of evolved. So what we're doing now, and I have a great committee. 2 of the members from economic development are here. So, whoo-hoo, raise the roof happy. And Denise, God bless Denise, she said, whatever you want, I'm here. So it's really nice that we have 4 sorors who committed to the training, which is going to make it real easy to really sort of kind of roll it out. So what we're envisioning is using the Empowerment Day to kick it off. So how the Empowerment Day is structured, we have a keynote. We're hoping to have a keynote. We're praying to have a keynote. We're talking about that more. And then have breakout workshops, which, of course, the workshops focus on our 5-point thrust. And so on economic development thrust, we're going to actually do dfree. And we're blessed because Kim is she's the administrator for First Baptist Lincoln Gardens. So she's going to facilitate that particular workshop. So it's sort of things that were naturally built in, that's making it sort of kind of easy for us to sort of roll it out to the community. And part of what we were talking about, what is that going to look like for the community? Because we're anticipating about 200 people to come to our Empowerment Day, but also we know that this is a chapter initiative as well. So we were just talking about, well, I'm a goal person, so I'm like, well, how many chapter sorors do we want to participate as long with the community? Because we know people are going to be excited about it. People are going to want to sign up for it. So what does that look like? So we've already been talking about, we're going to have sign-up sheets. We are going to have our location designated. We're going to talk about I think we're going to use the module. So we already talked about, okay, what is that going to look in our calendar? And we've even talked about what 2015-16 service year looks like. For those of you who are chairpersons, you know that planning calendar is due pretty soon. So, it's an easy fit to sort of already put things in place for now, but also next service year and what that was going to look like. So that's why I talked about the workshops. So if we know about what workshops are going to be, we can already build that into our service calendar for 2015-16. So we're excited. I'm really, really nervous because this is going to be this is our first community empowerment day, but some of the energy that we're getting back from it, because, it's Trenton. Trenton has a lot of different needs. and one of which, just trying to get our community to understand what debt is. And also, we're excited about that. But I'm scared because I'm like, well, what does that look like? I'm like, okay, what does that look like for us? But Michelle has said, we're going to support you. We're going to be there for you, whatever type of stuff you need. So I'm really excited about having that support and knowing that I'm not doing it by myself. I have 3 committee members that took a Saturday. And, you guys know that there was an Omega Maker service for one of our founding members today in Darby, Pennsylvania. So to come and still be training, that shows the commitment too. So I'm just happy about the support. That's it.
Thank you so much, Morella. Wasn't that helpful? Because Morella just made it real for you and thinking about how we can get this done. And now is the time, because it's our planning season in Delta, and we know when we get to that convention also, we know that a part of the financial fortitude is getting sorors out of debt. So I already see other chapters signing up for $1 Billion Challenge, but it started here in the East, so I just don't want to be left behind, okay? So thank you. I love that. We'll be here to support you any way that we can, even if we need to get Pastor Sori's suitcase of books out there for you, we'll make it happen, right? So thank you. I want Heather to come up and just talk a little bit about her launch, because she's launching tomorrow. So she's going to need our prayers. Amen? So just a few words on how you're getting started. So, Heather?
Well, good afternoon, beautiful ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. I'm going to just do like that. I'm Heather, and I stumbled upon dfree. I was with my husband, who's Dr. Joseph Woods. He's the General Secretary for the General Baptist Convention of New Jersey. He's also the Senior Servant Leader for the St. Philip's Baptist Church in Hamilton. And I came to... Oh, excuse me, this just happened. And the moderator of the Higher Ground Association, which is the 6th association for the General Baptist Convention of New Jersey. Okay, so I was at an event that he came to. I support whenever I can. Plus, I just love church. So we came to an event here, and it was a conference for dfree. Now, I don't like to talk about money, okay? I just like to spend it. That's it. And so I got to sit through this thing, and when we got here, we got to the hotel, I was so nervous because I'm like, we're going to go through this conference, which means when we get home, we're going to have to talk about money and how we're going to make it work. I don't want to talk about any of that, okay? I don't want to stop my spending habits. I just don't. So I came into the conference, and I was tight. I was like, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm just going to watch. But as the people began to get up and give their stories, I saw myself in at least 3 of the 5 or 6 stories that were shared. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. Now, if she can do it, and I could do it, plus I like her shoes, and she can still manage this thing, I can do it too. So I started to get a little hype, as they say. So we had these breakout sessions, and I didn't want to follow my husband to the preacher's little session. So I'm like, gosh, I got to pick one of these things to go to. So I went to the certification. And still a little excited about what I just witnessed, but still very reserved. I'm not getting in here talking to these people about nothing. You remember, about nothing that's going on with me. But I'm telling you, probably 15 minutes into the session upstairs, you probably couldn't shut me up. I had something to say. I wanted to participate in everything. It was my breakthrough moment for dfree. Now, am I dfree? No, but I'm on my way. Okay. It has opened my awareness. I have begun to change some things in my life. I realized that I don't really need to spend that much, because when I finally got in there and organized my closet, I was like, gosh, I got so much stuff. But I'm definitely on my way. And so what I am doing tomorrow, my husband and I, we started to talk about dfree and how can I bring this awareness to the people. I like people. I like to talk to people. And the Lord has blessed me. I'm influential. So how can I bring this to the people? Well, we decided to start first at our church and through our church school. So my husband restructured the church school process, whereas you normally come in and go through your little book, and that's how you do church school. Well, we're not doing it like that anymore. We're having 3 classes that will run for 12 weeks. One of them is dfree, another one is an evangelism class, and another one, I don't remember. So all of these classes will run for 12 weeks consecutive, and then at the end you graduate and you can go take the next course, and a new group of people will come in and take my dfree course. My class is the biggest class because everybody wants First Lady to teach them something, and so I'm excited. Like, yes, however you get here, just get here because I'm getting ready to rock your world. So tomorrow, we will start our first class, and it will be an introduction to what dfree is about. We'll talk about their pre-work and all of that. We've been doing some marketing. We've been letting people know that this exists in our church bulletin. We've been listing the 3 classes. They've been doing pre-registration for the course. I am not buying books for people. However, tomorrow during our first intro session, they will have the opportunity, one, to learn about what dfree is about. And I like today, it just kind of refreshed me. It's not about me changing your finances, but it's about us empowering each other to get control over how we handle our money so that it does not control us. So we'll come in and talk about that, and we will also sign up for the billiondollarpaydown.com. I'll have my computer up, and they will sign up. And we will also be able to go and order books so that when they come for the next class, we'll have the books for them. So I'm excited about what the Lord is going to do through dfree. I'm really excited because I did what Tamika talked about, skimming through the book, going through some of the things in my workbook, and some of them I got to, I was like, Lord, I got to close this. I can't deal with this right now. But as a instructor, I will go through it, and I will do it because you cannot stand before a group of people and talk about something that you've not experienced. So I've started going through, even though I read the book, I'm back on chapter 1, reading it all over again. We're doing our workbook again and actually walking through the exercises. So tomorrow I don't just stand before them as a robot, because that trainer's guide can make you a robot if you do not do your own work. But I will stand before them with experience of going through the book, and we'll have conversation about how we walk through these 12 steps, how it's changing our lives. So I am not debt free. I like to spend my money. Never in a million years did I think I would be teaching somebody about being dfree. All 3 and 6 of the D's. I never thought I would do that, but here I am. I'm doing it, and I know that the Lord will bless me in the process. God bless you.
Wasn't that awesome? And that's the beauty of just hearing the other stories, because what we're talking about now is how to get started, right? So I want to hear just from 2 more people, just so that we make sure, because everybody's in a different space. So Michelle, if you want to come up from Monclair. Monclair's in a unique space because they are just getting started. And so I said, if nothing else, you can get feedback on your ideas, because now that we're starting to visualize this and connect dots on how it can be done, we're here to help one another, all right? So Michelle?
Good morning. I'm excited. As the other Michelle said, we're just starting, but I can tell you last night we kind of opened up to we had chapter meeting, and we started talking about dfree and the $1 billion challenge last night, just to introduce it to the chapter. And I can tell you we had 12 people sign up that they would be willing to work with the committee at that point. And those of you chapters are here, you know how hard it is sometimes to get people to work on economic development. So we're on the way. I've been here. I've been inspired this morning. I have been live emailing and texting to people all morning. Our chapter president knows exactly what we're doing. I think she's probably streaming it. She is in Philadelphia, but I think it's on her phone, because she sent me a couple of things that I know she must be listening to what's going on, and we're ready to go. I've already told her that we are on the sometimes you take a past president's point of privilege to tell her we're on the chapter agenda for April, for Financial Fortitude Month. And she says, okay. So we will be doing something there. We will be just kind of jumping in, and you know how sometimes you have to jump in the water and just float, and that's what we're going to do. We're thinking about how we can not only do this for the parents of some of our gyms and Delta Academy, because and Embody, So we're trying to, as we think about integrating that kind of information to that. And I can also announce that we're going to be doing Jabberwock for 2015-16. So we will be integrating dfree because, you know, that's a lot of fundraising. We work a lot with families. So we will be thinking about doing that also. And I'm going to be listening to everything here. Trenton, you gave me a couple of ideas, which I live emailed to somebody. And moving forward with this, I look at it as a personal opportunity and an opportunity for both the empowerment of our sorors and the communities that we serve, because public service is more than just, as we say, feeding. It's also teaching people how to fish.
Excellent. All right, I'm feeling inspired. Is that my book? Okay, yep. Thank you. Okay, so that's awesome because I wanted you to hear that we're all in different places. Something else to consider, and you just put the idea in my mind, is the other call that we have, at least within Delta, is to make sure that we're intertwining social action in all of our ministries. And so you can think about dfree, and you think about debt, and you think about the predatory lending. There's also social action in that as well because they are starting regulation to look at how to, is that social action, Chair? All right, talking to you. Looking at how we can put a cap on that. So it'll still be a problem in our community, but it's an opportunity for us to let our voices be heard, and that's what we do, right? So we can also do that in the congregations of churches as well. So lastly, but not least, I want Allison to come up from North Jersey and just talk about where you guys are because we can help one another. And as Michelle said, you know, in pulling this together, I would like us to talk and brainstorm and text one another so we can support, so we can make this easy to launch, all right? So Allison, tell us about North Jersey.
Well, the first thing I want to say is there's 12 steps, but if there's a step 0, that's where we are right now, okay? Okay? So, but I am happy to be here today, and I have been truly inspired not only by, you know, all the stories that we heard, but even how the pastor was able to talk about how the church had been able to take advantage of the results to even build even more. And I think that's what we as a chapter are going to be able to do as well, and we look forward to that. We have about 7 people, I think, committed to the to this project, and we are just getting started, but we're happy to say that we got almost everybody here today for this session, so I think we're going to be ready to go forward. I don't think we have a schedule yet. Again, we're at step 0, but I think we now have the tools and the information that we need to move forward, and so thank you, and I really do appreciate this.
Thanks, Allison. And like I said, just so that everybody know, we're in a different place, but we're here to help. So with that, if there's no other questions, and if we don't have questions online, I'm going to turn it back to Pastor Sori. So thank you. I am so looking forward and excited about the work we're going to do together. Pastor?
Thank you so much. Didn't these ladies do a great job? I wish you could meet one of our other ladies. The woman who created the Leader's Guide for the workbook is Willie Mae Veazey. And she's a member here. She's a genius. The only reason she's not here today is because she wants you to go through 9 hours of training. And we discovered after taking people through 9 hours of training that there's a smaller market of people willing to go through 9 hours of training. But she did such a great job in packaging the content that intelligent people can pretty much work through it themselves, and we'll be here every day to help you through the process. Now, there are a couple of things you need to know. First of all, if you have access to the internet in your location, the videos are, in fact, embedded in the slide. And you can click it and it'll take you straight to the YouTube page. If you don't, you can't even get to the YouTube page anyway. So the video, you can click straight through, but the videos are all on our YouTube page, mydfree.org. The lead video, if you go there right now, the lead video is something I'm so proud of. We had a young lady who gave her testimony at our conference. She's a single mother. She has a lot of regrets about having a child too young and being single. And she was working in a minimum wage job at a child care center. And one of the exercises in the workbook, and she was in the class that I taught, was to make a list. It's on page 74, actually, in your workbook, where we invite people to make a list of the things they love to do, that they do so well that somebody would pay them. You know, here's the bottom line. After you've cut back on all your spending, you've got your budget, you're all of where dfree said you should be, you just need more money. You know, there are people who just need more money, and although we put more emphasis on the debt, which is the D, the reality is we want to grow and we want to expand. We want to help people own their own businesses and increase their income and dream. The challenge is when you're drowning in debt, you can't dream. When you're drowning in debt, you do feel stuck, and so you won't even pursue opportunities because you're busy not opening your mail. So this young lady went through the process. She gives a testimony. It's only 3 minutes. Check it out. And she says that after going through that exercise, she realized she loves kids. She has a passion for kids. She takes care of kids, but she's not making enough money. And so she left that session deciding that if she loves kids and takes care of kids, she could open her own daycare. And within 6 months, she doubled her income because she decided rather than taking care of kids for someone else, she'd do it for herself. And we have testimonies all over this congregation around the country of people who now that they're in charge of their finances and they've begun to breathe and think and pray and dream and imagine, and they're hearing other people's testimonies, they've begun to soar because they never thought that way before. And I've been there. When I lived in Monclair, I dreamt about politics. I dreamt about social justice. But in terms of my own personal life, I was living from paycheck to paycheck. And so I may have had a dream, but I didn't have a plan. The other thing I want to emphasize is they use language that I don't use because I'm just a preacher. But remember this, that you're not being asked to teach finance. And that's why Michelle said you really don't have to become an expert in the content initially because you're really leading people through the process. There's another exercise, it's on a chart in the workbook, that asks people to separate their wants from their needs. I have literally watched light bulbs go off in people's minds when they actually wrote down the first list of wants and the first list of needs, and then in the process we ask people to quantify the value or the cost of your wants and the cost of your needs, and then go back again and make sure everything on your need list is really a need and everything on your want list is affordable. That kind of process doesn't require an MBA. And so the person who's facilitating that can, in fact, go through that at the same time. In fact, you'll discover that if you lead people through it twice, you will review over and over and over again your need. My needs today are different than my needs were 5 years ago. And now that my sons have finished college, my wants have changed. So it's a process. Today, we're trying to introduce you to the process, but remember that our ultimate goal is to get people who are willing to lead people through the process, because all the data reveal that most Americans don't have a budget. Most people don't have written goals. And when we begin taking control of our lives by having budgets and having goals and writing them down and holding ourselves accountable and then getting encouragement, which is what I want to close with, the encouragement factor, we just do better. We just absolutely do better. Now, to the Deltas, let me thank you because we will be learning together, and that's why you need to let us know every time you have a question or comment or discovery, because we've been doing this in church for 10 years. We can do church with our eyes closed. You ask me one question about how to do this in church, I'll give you 18 answers. I mean, that's what I do. It's who I am. However, when we started, we assumed that African Americans, while spiritual, are not all church-based. And there are times when our other affiliations are as meaningful to us, if not more so, than the church itself. And so this is our first formal foray into non-church space. that's why with the deltas, we're really leading with the $1 billion challenge. We're leading with the what? You see, in church, we can assume that because they're in the church, everybody has agreed on the what. They want to be saved, they want to go to heaven, they want to be free. So we leverage that what and the Bible that says if you're a borrower, you're slave to the lender. We leverage that to get into the how. Because you're in church, now you need to know how to be a better Christian, and this is a part of our answer. But with the deltas, we're really leading with the $1 billion challenge. Not every delta goes to church, not every delta is a Christian, not every delta believes in church at the same level. And so we're trying to establish a consensus around the what. That's why Michelle in the slide said that if we can start with asking people to set their goal, their debt reduction goal. And we have to start with debt because when Prudential did their study of Black America, and they've got their 3rd edition coming out, they discovered from $25,000 a year salaries to $125,000 a year salaries, the one answer that every income level gave when asked, what is your financial priority? 8 out of 10 said getting out of debt. 4 out of 5 of us have debt as our primary barrier to owning our own businesses, to sending our kids to college, to having peace of mind, to having peaceful marriages. Debt. And although we want to get out of debt so that we can own real estate, we can stop complaining about foreigners buying up the neighborhood, we can buy up our own neighborhoods, we can, you've got Delta members who can't afford the big events y'all have. So they'll make excuses. They'll say, my mama's sick. And the fact is they're broke. They're just broke. They spend money on hair and nails and other things. They can't afford, what do y'all have? Galas, what do y'all call them? Yeah, conventions. That's right. They can't afford it. Their credit cards are maxed out, and they just can't afford it. Now, the Deltas, by buying into this $1 billion challenge, have really introduced us to the possibility of the NAACP push, rainbow push. We're talking to them because we think, you see, we are so diverse today. Black people, when you say Black America, that is no longer descriptive of anything. Which Black America are you talking about? But there is one thing I believe Black America can agree to do, and that is get out of debt. If we can get out of debt, all of those big things, including running people for office and buying our own businesses, all of those things become easier to do. And so we are learning from these 4 chapters of how to expand at least the $1 billion movement beyond the church. And what we've actually had to say, which is true, we've had to say that if a Delta chapter or any other non-church group wants to help its members get out of debt but doesn't want the dfree materials, you find some materials that match the needs of your group. It may be Dave Ramsey, it may be hands-on banking, maybe a member of your chapter wrote a book. We don't care about the how, because if you have a how that matches your needs and we're all in sync on the goal, we'll win. The reason we take you through all of this training is because we have not found a how that matches our holistic needs, and so we had to create our own. So, as we close, let me say that these ladies gave you some hints as to what's coming. Sanaya's working with a technology group out of Silicon Valley to expand and make much more robust and functional the $1 billion challenge website. And I'm not sure what the timetable is, but she usually doesn't take long to get much of anything done. We have, as Tamika announced, an updated version of the book. We've updated some of our data. We've added a couple of stories that'll be released this year. We have these monthly seminars, April 18th. Make sure you write that down. April 18th is our first monthly seminar that we're really going to broadcast and strategically offer as a kind of joint venture. So we're going to ask every Delta chapter, every church to make it their own. And it's going to feature Lynn Califani Cox. You've seen her on television. She's got 2 great books, one called Perfect Credit. Now, we all need to hear what that means. And the other is zero debt. And we're going to promote that as a national dfree seminar streaming around the country and ask people to put it on their web pages and their Facebook pages. You're going to have banners that you can share. So it's a shared event that no one has to pay for. We also, I have written the beginning of a year-long daily devotional where every day you get a Bible verse, a little comment, and a prayer, encouraging people around matters that are financial. We have more merchandise, some T-shirts and some other merchandise that people like to use. We've been asked for posters and other things people would use in their local setting that would aid you. Our job is to not only share what we have so that you can use them to your advantage, but our main job is to be a clearinghouse so that we can share best practices among people so that all of us can learn. A lot of what we're doing now, we learned from Indianapolis. There's a pastor in Chicago that bought 800 copies of the book, and he's using the book in ways that I don't use the book. And so on Easter Sunday, we're going to roll out a strategy here that we learned from a church in Chicago that's using our book. So Deltas, you are critical because your 4 chapters will lead the way for the whole sorority. Your sorority will lead the way for the Pan-Hellenic world. The Pan-Hellenic world will lead the way for national black organizations. And if we have $1 billion, can you imagine $1 billion shift from Visa, MasterCard, Macy's to insurance, annuities, real estate, and investments? My wife had a niece who was brutally attacked and killed by her boyfriend. She was 46 years old. She had a 16-year-old son and no insurance. We had to raise a collection just for the funeral. Her son, of course, had to go into foster care. He had no father. His mother was dead and no money. Had she taken the money she spent at the club and invested it in insurance at 46, she could have left her son with $500,000 with a very small investment of her money, but no one told her that. So the tragedy was bad, but the greater tragedy is that the cycle now will continue because her son is now in foster care, has no savings, has no college capacity. And so in large measure, what we're trying to do is create this overlay for our people so that there can be a shift in the way we handle the $1 trillion that we'll spend this year. And if we do that, I believe the impact will be immeasurable and multi-generational. So you're on the cutting edge, you're in the vanguard, you're on the leadership team, and don't believe a word of what Michelle said. Michelle did not come into my office simply to talk about mentoring, all right? I can't see when I'm not around. When I'm not around, they'll say anything. Michelle was already teaching new members class. She was already teaching. She was teaching new members class, and she wanted the mentoring. And I did not reject the mentoring. All I did was give her a transfer from new members class to dfree, which, by the way, is teaching. So she made it sound like I just ignored her little GEMS project and dragged her into dfree, and now she's a slave. I heard you, and I saw the look on your face. And they were sitting there saying, my God, what kind of man is that? So don't believe all of what she said. She's funny. Any questions for me? Any questions for me? I want to thank our online participants. One person I think is on the phone. That's where I was on. I heard her on my phone while I was driving. I had to run around the corner. You thought I was gone. Are there any questions from the online participants, Sanaya? Yeah, Tamika was right. We are uncharacteristic in our ending early. That is not our tradition around here. Any questions for me? First Lady, any questions? Start looking for some higher ground people like you that you can train and that we can help. Our people are broke. Our people are broke. Michelle has coined this term, ministry integration. That's her big-time corporate engineering word for just, in church we call that being in one accord. So I went to the choir, when we first started, before she got involved, I went to the choir and I said, I noticed that the choir is not really connecting with this dfree thing, and so if choir members don't start coming to dfree classes, I'm going to start bringing dfree classes to choir rehearsal. So one woman, she was sitting right over there, one woman got up and she said, Reverend, I've been with you on everything you've done since you got here, but now I think you're going too far. My money is none of your business. And I said, ma'am, let me tell you something. You don't have any money. You're broke. And if you had money, I wouldn't be doing this. I don't know what money you're talking about. I said, my money. And 6 months later, she got up in front of the whole church on dfree Sunday, and she apologized to me in front of the whole congregation. And she told them what she said to me. And she said, I thought the pastor had lost his mind, but he has saved my marriage. He has saved my money. And now my whole life is going to be different because this man would not listen to me and persisted with this dfree ministry. Tamika told you there are people, or Michelle, there are people who have never been to a dfree class, but they've heard the testimonies, they see the tapes. I just won't shut up. And when Miss Jones sees that Miss Smith paid off her car, but she's still driving it, and Mr. Williams sees that his cousin paid off his house and he's really out of debt, when people see that businesses are starting and that families are prospering, people get inspired by other people. And it's the testimonies of other people that will make this more powerful than anything that can come from a preacher or from a chapter president. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your investment. Thank you for caring enough, not only about yourselves, but other people, to be a part of this movement. And if you have any questions at all, any time of any day, get those 3 ladies' email. Don't call me because you won't catch me. I move fast.
You can actually email info@mydfree.org, and I actually just sent you guys an email that has
info@mydfree.org.
info@mydfree.org.
Good. And where does that go? To you?
To myself and Tamika.
Wonderful.
And then you guys also have an email with all of the information slide-wise that we went over today.
Wonderful. All right.
Just wanted to let you know that the bookstore is still open because I know a few people still need to pick up books. The bookstore will be open until 1, and we'll also be here after if you have any other questions. Pastor mentioned the Prudential African American Study. That was on your seats as well as you came in, so take some time to read through that. They'll be updating it, but we offered you what we have right now. All
But
right?
you will buy boxes of books at a discount. In other words, and you can either pass the saving along. I think the workbook in bulk comes at about $8, and the book comes at about $12. Some people pass the saving along to the participants. Some people mark it up a bit and use the profit to buy the refreshments and other little things. And some people actually make a commission personally if that's what they need. We don't care what you do. We just don't want you to give the books away for free because people don't value what they get for free as much as they do when they pay something. And we think the something is not too much to ask. But everything else is free. The materials are free. The training's free. The events are free, except for our annual conference. All right, put October 30th and 31st on your calendar. That's when all of our groups and churches will be asked to come together at this place for our National dfree Conference. Cincinnati, Atlanta, New Orleans, all the places that we're working, Indianapolis, and we'll give our testimonies, we'll give out awards, we'll congratulate people, we'll have music and food. It'll be fun. That's October 30th and 31st. All right, let's stand and close in prayer. And those of you who are online, thank you again, and you will be dismissed once we pray. Lord, we thank you once again for what our eyes have seen, what our ears have heard, and what our hearts have felt. We thank you in advance for the transformation that will occur as a consequence of the leadership of these, your people. We thank you for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. We thank you for the churches that are here. And we thank you for those who are connected to us online. Bless us as we heed this call, as we accept this mission, and we pray that by your Spirit you might empower us to set financial captives free. We thank you for the work done by Sanaya, by Michelle and Tamika, and for the materials created by Willie Mae, and ask that you might take us from this place knowing that we will never leave your presence to our various homes safely. In Jesus' name, amen. Good job, ladies.
Hey, 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 hey. 1, 2. Forward with lead. 2. Hey, hey. Hey, hey. 1, 2. All right. I don't know how hot you can get this gain. Levels up here. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, hey. Before feeding back. Guessing I'm getting close. Yep. Yeah. They're just body packs for they're microphones for the what are they doing? The play tomorrow. Hey, hey. 1, 2, yeah, so the Good Palm Sunday one or something? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You too. Nope. Check 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Hey, hey. Alright. But they don't. Hey, 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 check, check. Hey. Hey, 1, 2, 1, 2. 36 might be too much for you. All right. Two, 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 two. Check, check. 1, 2. All right. So these guys, if they